online left.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
kind of a grift for
There, yeah,
85% of the people on here, but whatever. God bless. As long as they do a bit of good work along the.
alongside it, yeah. It's really important that people are actually getting active and getting out and making things happen, and also setting a good example for people, because there's a lot, like this is something that I'm aware of as well, that there are younger people, impressionable people who will have a look at these streams, and there's you can have some level of influence. Sorry, I just realized that we're live.
Oh, we are. Okay, what's up, guys?
I'll cut this
Okay, I
out.
mean, the vodka causes a bit of delay, not only in the internet but in our brains. So I think the people
Yeah.
watching will understand.
They will understand. Cheers, everybody. We're drinking only the finest. Well, I'm drinking this shitty Smirnoff, but I assure you that Comrade Yugopnik here is drinking the finest vodka.
Oh, I am. Like, it's super ironic that two Marxists are about to talk about brands, but Russian Standard Platinum, very good shit. I don't know. They probably sell it in Ireland and in England and so on, but I
Mm,
doubt they sell it in the U.S. But it's some good shit.
mm, mm. Smirnoff is not good shit. To be honest, I'm mostly drinking vodka to look cool here at the moment, but it's.
Trust me, you do not need vodka to look cool, my friend.
Come on now. You're being too kind. Okay, so everybody, welcome to the stream. In the chat there, we have a fantastic guest today. We have our comrade Yugopnik. Hello, everybody in the chat. I see Dismal Saturnian, some random Swede, Martin Barakov, Lorcan Nagel. Some names I can't pronounce. It's good to have you all here. Polila, what's the crack? Maximijan Gale. Berrimans, what's up? Conrad, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody? Of course, I'm sure everybody knows your channel very, very well already, but would you like to introduce yourself in case anybody has managed to miss it?
Absolutely. Well, what's up, everyone? Once again, where do I start? Well, I guess from the name, I go by Yugopnik, a name which kind of stems from the combination of, let's say, two things that describe me pretty well. First one is, as we call it in this part of the world, an internationalist sort of identity, and the other one is a Gopnik. So you're going to pretty much realize what that means from this stream, which is being a Slavic alcoholic. I have a YouTube channel by the same name where I like to tackle shit like capitalism, fascism, and most importantly, give sort of a Eastern European point of view on socialism. I do have, I guess I should mention it. I don't know why. I have a formal education in political science, but also in business, which kind of, together with my Eastern European shit, gives me a uniquely critical perspective on what the West is trying to sell you as the only viable mode of organization, which is pretty much the market and capitalism. So I am both from an ex-socialist country and also kind of informed on how capitalism works from the inside. And I talk about many different things from that perspective. And yes, this is my first live stream of all time, so please don't be overtly judgmental when I say something that is a bit out of line, because I usually say what's on my mind, and when I'm like 5 vodkas in, I usually say what's on my mind plus, like New Game Plus. Yes, that's pretty much it.
Game Plus, that's amazing. Yeah, we are going to be getting drunk here. Fantastic. It's an excellent channel. Everybody, you need to go and subscribe. You'll find the links below this video in the description box. You'll find a link to our comrades channel here, Twitter, Patreon, all that good stuff. And just to address, sometimes this stream is haunted by Comrade Stalin's ghost, and sometimes our guests' audio will cut out because Stalin doesn't like us smack talking him, and especially given that we're going to be talking about Tito today, and there's that that crucial split between Tito and Stalin that
The
happened.
ultimate smacker of Stalin.
Yeah, Jesus, there's a great quote that I look forward to reading out later on based on that. But what we're doing today is we're recording it on both ends. So afterwards, Yugopnik's going to fire me over the audio. So if there's any issues, I'll re-upload this video with the overdubbed audio. So you're going to be able to hear everything anyway. So So yeah, we've got problems. We're sorting them out, and we're getting things done. You'll also notice that in the video stream, you can't see the chat comments appearing on the right hand side of the screen. I don't know why they've disappeared. I think Streamlabs OBS is just acting the maggot, being a bit of an idiot, and not outputting it properly. So I'm sorry. You're gonna have to look at the actual chat box on YouTube if you want to get the good stuff. So and also of course the usual format will apply today. The comrades Yugopnik and I will be discussing questions, discussing subjects. We'll take one question between each other, and we'll take one question from the chat. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box, and make sure to just type @Paul Moran, so I know that they're directed towards me or towards us. Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Conrad, why did you start your YouTube channel? How did you get here to be this fantastic drunken Gopnik that we all know and love?
It's called an alcohol enthusiast, my friend.
Of course. Me too, no, yeah.
Well, honestly, I don't know where to start. It kind of the inspiration came from nowhere back when I started. What is it now? A year and a half ago. I really liked what was referred as BreadTube back then, but it kind of felt too clogged with the voices of some pretty all right, but non-radical comrades. And no, I'm not trying to espouse that I'm some, I don't know, poetic revolutionary or something. I'm just saying that the arguments I kept hearing were very, what's that American word? Yes, whitewashed and even LARPy at moments. And while I do see a place for that and put importance on, both online and real life channels that are used as a sort of pipeline to hardcore socialist beliefs, I also kind of thought there's a need for channels that those pipelines lead to. I mean, if we keep putting these people in a pipeline, I mean, there's no point in which they can reach and they can have sort of information readily available to them that is actually going to completely get them into this sort of radical and revolutionary mindset, then the pipeline is kind of a loss. Also, not to mention that we really need a few more perspectives other than American ones. I'm not saying their opinion doesn't matter, but American exceptionalism is one hell of a drug. And for objective internationalist growth, which I genuinely believe in, I think we need to kind of tackle issues on a lot more fronts than we do now. So I said, fuck it, let me do my small part. It can't hurt, and it didn't for the most part, except for all the cringe that I made. But yeah.
I know that feeling all too well. It's just like you delete your first 20 videos. Well, you don't delete them, you set them to private,
I will not delete anything, but I watched some shit that was I was pissed. I saw something happening. I was super pissed, and my video is just me ranting. It's not argumentative or anything. It's just a pissed off Eastern European looking at the West, which has all this insane amounts of wealth, and what do they do with it? They give it to literally 2,000 people to build 17 mansions, and then you together with the vodka. It's not a good combo. Just pissed off, you sit on the Premiere Pro and you record some shit.
Just get down and fucking record that shit. No, but I fucking did. I had to do a fucking proper purge of some of my older stuff on the channel because it was pretty bad. Just really fucking cringy. Because I didn't start off as a fucking leftist channel. Do you know what happened to me was I first made a video when the elections were happening in Brazil for Bolsonaro, and I had some mates in Brazil and I wanted them to just fucking not vote for this fascist piece of shit. And so I made this video, and it's in Portuguese. It's not even in fucking English. But I made that and told people not to do it. I realized that a few people were talking about it. It went pretty well. So I was like, okay, I'll keep on doing this. I'll make a few more left-wing videos. It was just a bit of a weird time for me politically, though, because I wasn't really fully politically developed. So I was still kind of figuring out a few things. I was kind of in an awkward spot between kind of...
Aren't we all?
Yes. Yeah, we are fucking all. I was in kind of an awkward spot between maybe more of a Trotskyist, really an eclectic kind of socialism, sort of bridging between reformism and revolutionary thinking. I was entertaining a lot of sort of anarchistic ideas, and then sort of course I would develop more into a Marxist direction, but You know, so there is always that sort of sense of, you know, you look back and there's a lot of stuff that I'd probably not agree with now if I was to make the videos again now, or maybe not that I disagree, but I'd probably maybe add a little bit more nuance, and especially for some of the videos I've even actually just put like a little comment underneath it saying actually I don't fully agree with this anymore, and I had to make some, you know, updated takes on a few different issues. But look, that's part of the process, and maybe it's actually useful for people to see political development happening in real time, because this is something I've talked about with a few different people. I think Left Tube, Bread Tube, Pank Tube, whatever it is. I think that
Vodka tube. I think we got a new one.
Yeah.
Grill and drink vodka.
Yes. Fucking chill tube.
Vodka pilled. Oh my god. Fuck yes.
Pilled.
Vodka pilled. Vodka pilled. So you know how grill pilled is. You know, invest
Yeah.
your time into meaningful, constructive, everyday things that allow you to become a more stable individual, which can later put all their skills into a potential uprising or a potential system change. Well, vodka pilled is drink until you become Marxist enough. Drink not away the theory, but drink in the theory.
If that were the case, if that were a real thing, then I assure you that Ireland would be fully communist by now. And I'm pretty sure Yugoslavia wouldn't have fallen. So.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a great counter argument, I guess.
But look, anyway, at least those Marxists can get in there and sort of steer things in a certain direction. Anyway, okay, cool. So, you know, the only real question we've had in the chat so far is to give a sort of biography and overview of the life of Tito and all that sort of thing. So we may as well jump into it. Will we go ahead and jump into the sort of the meat of this? Because I mean, this stream is of course going to be about Tito and Yugoslavia and the fall of Yugoslavia and all that sort of things. We're going to talk a little bit about socialism in Yugoslavia, market socialism, how that played out, whether or not that fits into a Marxist-Leninist understanding of the term. And yeah, are you okay? Will we go ahead and just jump into that and see how it goes?
Absolutely, sure.
Yes. All right, deadly. So let's go ahead and jump into this big question. So who was Josip Broz Tito? Now I'm pronouncing that terribly. I'm so sorry. You know, you trained me before we went on the stream. You properly trained me how to pronounce the name, and I'm still fucking.
You're extremely close, because before you called him Joseph, like the dude from the Bible, but Joseph is very close. Josip Broz Tito. So without an F in the end, but you're very good. You're very good.
You were too kind. All right, so. Right, so I'm going to give just a brief sort of snapshot overview of Josip's life here for everybody, almost like sort of a fucking, basically like a Wikipedia sort of overview of who he was, because I'm aware that it's quite difficult to find information about Tito. You know, like it's not really talked about on left-wing YouTube. It's difficult to find podcasts on it. There's no Rev Left Radio episode on Tito, would you believe? You know, Rev Left Radio, Brett covers everything, and he hasn't done one on this. What's going on with that? You know, we need to sort it out. I'm gonna have to get on to Brett, and he's gonna have to deal with my full rat as a result of that.
Yeah, that's kind of understandable. Tito is very complicated, and there's lots of conflicting sources of information on both on his life, but also his political beliefs and performances during the period in which he ruled, but also in his pre-socialist life, if we can define it as that. So it's relatively understandable that there's not a whole lot of information on him out there, but there are quite a few reactionary individuals, intellectuals, professors, etc., from Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe that have written on the topic, which could potentially be used as very decent sources for anybody who's relatively interested in the individual and in the deeds of Josip Broz Tito, bros, yeah, Josip, bros. Tito. But yeah, go through the points, and I'm going to judgmentally be listening and potentially jump in if I have anything.
Just fucking cut me off. Just cut it out. No bullshit here. Okay, we're going to talk about Josip Broz Tito. All right. So.
Tito.
All right, no, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this properly. All
Fucking
right.
drug. Yeah, yeah. No.
So, I should say most of this information is coming from Richard West's Tito and the Rise and Fall of Yugoslavia. So, if that's not a reliable source, then fuck me. Everything I said is
He's
just
okay.
disregard. He's okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's okay.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I get something wrong, then you can send him an email and tell him to do something to himself. Okay, let's just jump into it. No more arson around here. So Joseph Broz Tito.
Shoot.
He was born in May 1892 in the Kingdom of Croatia, Slavonia, to Croat and Slovenian parents. He only went to school for 4 years, leaving at the age of 12. He worked a series of jobs, and at the age of 18, he joined the Metal Workers Union and participated in his first labour protests. He also joined the Social Democratic Party of Croatia and Slavonia. Tito was conscripted into the Austro-Hungarian army in May 1913 for compulsory service. During his service in 1917, good year, local Bolsheviks boarded a train that he was on in Omsk, Russia, again probably mispronouncing that, and they recruited Tito to the International Red Guards. In 1920, Tito returned to his homeland and he joined the Communist Party of Yugoslavia and became a communist agitator. He found employment as a waiter at this stage, but the Communist Party of Yugoslavia was outlawed in 1921 and Tito got fired for his overt links to communism. Over the following years, he worked as a mechanic, but he had some run-ins with the law and his new boss threatened to fire him for his communist activities. When he was faced with an ultimatum in 1925, Broz ceased standard employment and became a professional revolutionary at the age of 33. So now we're getting into the good stuff. He became the secretary of the Central Committee in 1928, that's the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. Later that year, bombs were found in his residence, possibly planted by the police, it's alleged. And he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, he was released from prison in 1934 and resumed activity working with the Central Committee of the CPY. After being released from prison, he was still under surveillance by the police, and after failing to report to them in his hometown, he was a wanted man. This forced him to use various pseudonyms to mask his identity, such as Rudy, Walter, and Tito, which he would come to be eventually known as. He would publish in his party's journal under the name Tito, and it eventually stuck, though there's no clear reasoning for this name in particular. If I'm not mistaken, and Yugopnik, maybe you can jump in here and explain this a little bit more. But it seems that Tito is just a common name or a common term that's used in that area. Do you know anything about that?
Well, honestly, I've never met a single person that with the name Tito, which is very surprising because you would think when you have a country that's ruled by one specific individual, there would be a lot of people naming their kids after this guy.
Yeah.
But it's a relatively uncommon last name, but it was more of a allowed for his image to be more, easy to spread around. Just to say it runs off the fucking mouth, man. Tito. My guy's Tito. Just like Lenin. Lenin runs off the mouth. Mao Zedong. Like, why did they on all the posters it says Mao? It
just doesn't work, does it?
Yeah. So. There was plenty of pretty smart, propagandists or marketing experts and PR gentlemen, the way we would call them nowadays, both in the party and in the revolutionary movement during World War II, that pretty much figured it out. This is what we're going to go with. Also, and this is a more important point that actually came to my mind. Josip is a very, very Catholic name. And there's plenty of Jewish individuals with the name, etc., but it's it has an ethnic weight to it. Well, Tito does not. We have to remember, Yugoslavia was a very, very diverse place with ethnicities that, I'm going to talk about that later, but that had very conflicting during World War II and even during World War I. So you needed somebody who's going to unify this whole region of these people that do not have the best opinion of each other, where you have Orthodox Christians, where you have Catholics, and where you have Muslims. And Tito was not only, a great leader and a great organizer and then a great partisan, but he also just fit perfectly for the movement, because to use again Western terms, he was ethnically very ambiguous. So you couldn't if it was a guy who's super Serbian, I don't know, Marko Markovic, or a guy who's super Croatian, or a guy who's very like a person with a completely Muslim name, so a traditionally Muslim name. They wouldn't have been a good enough fit to be the representative of all of the peoples of the Yugoslav Republic. So this guy called Tito, and with an ethnically ambiguous background, was the perfect choice to lead this new multinational sort of country. I genuinely am kind of surprised that a guy such as him not only had such a background, which was a perfect fit for the leadership of the country when it comes to his ethnic background, but also his ideological background and also his activities, which are, at the end of the day, the only way we can see what is really in the mind and soul and spirit of a man. You can talk about being a Marxist as much as you want, and there were actually many for example, in Nazi Germany, that when they saw them rounding up all the leftists that turned into clear-cut Hitler supporters the next day. But when it comes to your actions, that is the only thing that can define you, both as a revolutionary, as a Marxist, or as anything pretty much in your life. You can tell your wife you fucking love her a lot, but if you cheat on her, you're a fucking cunt. It doesn't matter that you tell her that you fucking love her a lot and you would never cheat. If you cheat, you fucking cheated. You're
a piece of shit.
Exactly. You get my point.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And fucking hell, Tito was a man who fucking did a lot of shit, and we're going to get into fighting fascists and all that now, which is a really interesting period. So, from 19...
sorry to interrupt you. I went super overboard. Tito was used the name because it was ethnically very non-ambiguous, and it just worked. It rolled off the tongue.
Beautiful.
That's the answer. But it took me 20 minutes to answer it, of course. And I'll continue to blame it on the alcohol. Every stupid thing I do, I'll continue to blame it on the fucking alcohol.
We're going to be here for...
Please continue, sir.
I think we're probably going to be here until tomorrow morning talking about this.
We're
going to be up all night. We're going to be up all night talking shit.
Fuck it!
We'll have to turn this into one of those 24-hour charity streams or something like that.
You can start twitching, start doing Twitch.
Fucking Twitch stream,
twitching, Twitch stream,
I'm a Twitcher.
I'm a Twitcher. Why wasn't that ever a thing? I'm a Twitcher.
It's almost as bad as being a fucking YouTuber, yeah. All right. Come on, let's get on.
Yeah,
all right, so it's 1935. Fucking hell. Yeah, okay, so fascism's rising, that's the thing. From 1935 to 1940, Tito worked as a Comintern agent in Yugoslavia, Austria, and France, where he organised the dispatch of volunteers to fight in the Spanish Civil War. During this time, in August 1937...
He was the HR of the Spanish Civil War. So you had to, because he would get the people, he would get them to their, get them to transportation and get them to the regiments over there, just like HR is nowadays when they hire you. Sorry, I had to do that joke. It was in my mind for years now, but finally I had an opportunity.
Yeah, it's your moment.
I will not interrupt you anymore. Please continue.
Please interrupt us. It's going to be terribly dry otherwise. All right, so during this time, in August 1937, Tito became the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. In 1941, the fascists launched the invasion of Yugoslavia, which crushed the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. In the occupied territory, Tito organised resistance against the Axis forces and spent the following years fighting fascism. By 1944, Tito was recognised by all Allied authorities, including the government in exile, as the Prime Minister of Yugoslavia. In late 1944 and early 1945, with the assistance of the Soviet Red Army, the Yugoslav partisans executed general offensives that succeeded in breaking through German lines and forced them to retreat beyond Yugoslav borders, thus liberating Yugoslavia from fascist occupation.
This is all very good. I'll just jump in with a few little things.
Please.
So first of all, the monarchists, the lovely king of what was known as the Kingdom of Serbia, Slovenia, and Croatia, which also included, Macedonia, but of course they let the Macedonians out of the name, and Bosnia. But then, Bosnia is a very long conversation. but yes, so the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, as we shall call it, signed a non-violence agreement with the Nazis. Not to go too much into detail, but the idea was that Yugoslavia was going to be a sort of neutral state through which Nazis would be able to pass through. This obviously would have backfired eventually because fascists work like fascists and they can never cooperate with a foreign force for too long. But, and I'm proud to say, this as a Yugoslav, is that tens of thousands of people in the streets of Belgrade, which was at that time the capital of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, organized mostly by socialist forces and by socialist thinkers, and the pretty much banned Socialist Party in exile, organized massive counter-fascist protests where they shouted things like "It's better to be dead than be a slave," insinuating that they would quite literally want to fight a war that they cannot win in any way against the fascists, and in any way cooperating with these fascist pieces of shit. And during the war, there were two main sides, which we can talk about later, which were these extremely reactionary pro-monarchist forces called the Chetniks, which operated in Serbia. These hardcore Nazi insane pieces of shit in Croatia, which were the Ustasha, which were a complete puppet, bootlicking dog of the Nazis, who were honorary Aryans, even though Slavs were always considered subhuman and not even
That's
white
right.
by most
Yeah.
Western fascists and Western Nazis. But the fucking Ustasha likes to lick boots and cut Muslim and Orthodox Christian throats, so they jumped on that wagon pretty happily. So there was these three segments. So it's not segments, but groups. You had the Chetniks, you had the Ustasha, and you had the partisans, which were international, and they were Marxist, and they were a revolutionary force, which had not throughout the entire period the full support of the West. Actually, the Chetniks, because obviously a post-World War II unstable, monarchic, easy to manipulate Yugoslav state would have been much more preferred than a socialist one to the West.
Yeah.
And so the Chetniks, again, these were monarchists, Orthodox Christian monarchists, radical reactionaries that cooperated with the Nazis many times. They were not as bad as the Ustasha, but they were pretty high up there. They enjoyed the support of the West for quite a long time, but the West, obviously, the way it operates 99% of the time, forwardly being led by Churchill at that time, moved their support from the Chetniks over to Tito, not because they saw that Chetniks are butchering people and they're pieces of shit, but because they saw that Tito's going to win this thing, so we might as well get in his good graces before the whole thing ends. So it's very ironically, I'm gonna stop the rant quickly, but Yugoslavia during World War II was kind of a mini South American situation in which they are the West supports an insane right-wing paramilitary group, which were the Chetniks, up until the moment when they realized that the insane right-wing paramilitary group is about to lose, and then they support whatever relatively moderate, or in this case, because they had no other choice, a very radical left-wing idea.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Now, I don't want to get too much into the ideology just yet. We're kind of talking about the history at the moment, but it's a really exciting conversation, and especially the fact that the United States was willing to basically let Yugoslavia happen for fucking 45 years, and it's very interesting as why that happened, and there's some interesting things there with regard to Yugoslavia's so-called quote unquote neutral position there, and so there's. You would often see Yugoslavia sort of maybe playing both sides against each other, East and West, and they sort of took this neutral position between the two, and so the United States kind of liked that. It sort of drove a wedge between the sort of the Eastern Bloc and Yugoslavia and the socialist bloc more generally. So there's a really interesting
Yes, sir.
conversation. There's a really interesting conversation to be had there in terms of ideology, and we're definitely going to have to come to that in due course. You know, when we start talking about socialism and market socialism and all these sorts of things. But yeah, okay. Let's return to the history. Otherwise, we're never going to get through this. We'll be here until fucking 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 20 a.m. or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, my bad, motherfucker. Like, because you said jump in, and I jumped in.
It's
yeah,
great.
Okay.
It's great. It's a lot of fun. And I'm also getting fairly drunk, so yeah, sorry to all the people in the chat who have to see my drunk self. Here I am. All right, let's get started.
That was the only way I was gonna agree on this live stream shit. I was like, motherfucker, you're gonna be as drunk as me.
Really
okay, I'm sorry.
drunk.
Yeah, continue.
All right. Fuck, I'm drunk.
We're gonna go to the next point. So Tito ended.
Okay, all right.
Tito ended. Now the big boss in this new country called Yugoslavia.
He kicked the fucking fascists out. All right, it's 1945. Yugoslavia is finally starting as we come to know it. Okay, so it's March. It's the 8th of March, 1945. A coalition Yugoslav government was formed in Belgrade with Tito as premier. Tito enjoyed massive popular support due to being generally viewed by the populace as the liberator of Yugoslavia. In 1945, Tito's pro-Republican People's Front, led by the Communist Party of Yugoslavia, won the elections with an overwhelming majority. After the overwhelming electoral victory, Tito was confirmed as the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Democratic Federal Yugoslavia. The country was soon renamed the Federal People's Republic of Yugoslavia, FPRY, later finally renamed the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, or SFRY. In the first post-war years, Tito was widely considered a communist leader very loyal to Moscow. Indeed, he was often viewed as second only to Stalin in the Eastern Bloc. But in reality, Stalin and Tito had an uneasy alliance from the start, with Stalin considering Tito too independent. Tito had seen Stalin's governing style in Russia years prior and also had his own suspicions of him. So that's really important to keep in mind, because there is sometimes a little bit of a narrative that, you know, they were good mates at the start, you know, but then things got a little bit ropey later on. But actually, there was always, you know, suspicion between the two of them, you know. Do you want to jump in there, or will we continue?
Yes, I would love to. I'll keep it very short. You have Yugoslavia, you have World War II, and you have all these conflicting groups. And the group that wins and that liberates the country are the partisans, are the socialists. So they quite literally are a revolutionary group that successfully, even during a world war, the biggest war of all time, manages to come in power in a given country. They win the elections. Fair, unfair, doesn't matter, but 80% is 80%. I mean, it does matter, but 80% is 80%. Become the leaders of the said state. So all the nations and all the citizens of Yugoslavia see Tito and see the Socialist Party of Yugoslavia as a group that earned their spot in the country. Okay. While what happened I'll use Bulgaria as an example. You had Bulgaria fighting on the Axis side, and World War II ends, and they have a new, quote unquote, communist government. From the perspective of a Yugoslav, you see Tito and the socialists, they fought the fascists, they won, and now they get to not rule us, they get to create a new state together with us. You look at it from the Bulgarian perspective, we fought the Soviets rolled in to Bulgaria and beat us because we were on the Axis, and they installed another government. So in Yugoslavia, the revolutionary socialist forces were seen as a movement that came from the people, while in many satellite, if we can call them that, republics outside of the Soviet Union, the party was seen as a foreign threat, conquering and putting their own people in charge of said conquered lands. And Tito, being extremely independent, did not want to become that. So I'm not either justifying it, because there's many arguments to be had here. But all I'm saying is that's one of my main criticisms of Soviet internationalist policy. Uh,
Mm.
when you after World War II, uh, they kind of did it too fast, and they were perceived by the locale as not something that is in the general interest of the public. So Tito and Yugoslav communists were afraid that potentially that could have happened to them. They would be removed in order for somebody who is more in line with the interests of Moscow than the interests of Belgrade, Zagreb, or Sarajevo.
Mm. Mm.
And those two conflicting approaches to how to quote unquote export revolutions right at the end of World War II are, in my opinion, one of the biggest factors on why these two gentlemen, Josip and Stalin, drifted apart.
Mm, yeah, that's a really, really good perspective here, and it's not really a perspective that I had actually considered before. So this is why you're here. You got some really, really key insights, and which are really, really interesting and really important to hear. So, but let's
Thank you. I'm glad I still can fucking make them.
Yeah, fucking yes, you can. That wasn't a fucking Obama reference right there. Fuck Obama, killing kids and stuff. Fuck that guy. Anyway, okay, sorry. All right, let's push on. All right, so it's 1948. In 1948, motivated by the desire to create a strong, independent economy, Tito modelled his economic development plan independently from Moscow, which resulted in a diplomatic escalation followed by a bitter exchange of letters in which Tito wrote that we study and take as an example the Soviet system, but develop in a different form. There was also a difference of opinion between Tito and Stalin on the Greek Civil War. Tito wanted to help the communist revolutionaries win the fight against their government, while Stalin wanted to be neutral so as not to give the West an excuse to attack. Tito ended up helping the Greek proletariat while Stalin remained neutral, but unfortunately the Civil War was a loss. I have some questions personally about Tito's relationship to the Greek Civil War. I'm not 100% sure if that's entirely true. This might be an issue of the source that I got things from, but I've heard conflicting things about that, with Tito helping fascists and helping communists. So there's a little bit of a question mark over that there. Do you know anything about that, Tito's relationship to the Greek Civil War?
I'll take a pass on this one because
Mm.
genuinely, like I said in the beginning, I'm not a historian. I don't want to say something that is objectively wrong. But what I will say is that based on my readings on Josip at that time, he was what word should I use without overextending?
Yeah.
He was a genuine idealist, and I think he felt that. Uh, because it was very fresh. So World War II just ended, and
Mm.
and there was all this insane amounts of genuine success of this underdeveloped ex-monarchic country managing to push out this massive Nazi force out of it. So he thought that after this moment, every single socialist revolution everywhere on the planet has to be 100% supported because it can win.
Mm.
And that is absolutely a point that everyone should hold, that they all should be supported, but you cannot hold the point that they would always be successful, and that a lot of them were not doomed to fail. So the Soviet argument was we want to create kind of relatively closer ties, even though that backfired as well with the West. So let's let the West do whatever it needs to do in Greece, because the Greeks are not going to manage to do it anyway without us starting, I don't know, a new massive conflict if we directly through troops intervene there. Well, again, the more idealist Tito didn't see it that way and thought that the Greeks need immediate help.
Mm. Mm.
So again, like everything in geopolitics, that's why I fucking hate Twitter, because everything there is black and white.
Yep.
Shit is extremely complex, and
Yeah.
the people making the tough decisions sometimes. I mean, it's extremely depressing for me to say this as a socialist, but sometimes have to make tough choices which are not always in the brightest of ethical standards.
Unfortunately, yeah, that is the reality. But we need to be, of course, scientific socialists about this. We need to be materialists. We need to understand reality for what it is, and confront it head on, without sort of resulting to sort of utopian ideals of how we think things should have gone, or how we would have liked things to have gone. And if only Tito had done this, then him and Stalin would be best mates, and they'd fucking sail off into the sunset together, and they would have aligned with the East, and now we'd all be living in full
Maybe
communism.
Tito could have influenced Stalin to not do some of the pretty fucked up shit that he did through his perspective and stuff like that. But one positive thing is at least that Greece now is like the amount of radical leftists, both MLs, both Marxists, both ultra left, both and anarcho-syndicalists there is absolutely beautiful to see. I've been to Greece. Half of the city is painted in "Eat the rich, kill the rich," fucking hammers and sickles, anarchy signs on every second wall. So in the long run, I guess Greece eventually is going to be fine because it has quite the radicalized population.
Yeah, that's right. The KKE is massive over there. The Greek Communist Party is absolutely massive. It has huge influence in that, so it's very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to watch. I would say, in terms of countries that might be moving towards socialism and that have radical revolutionary potential, I mean, definitely watch this space. Okay, brilliant. Let's go ahead and push forward there. So let's see. We just talked about 1948. Okay, so we're moving towards 1949 now. So relations between Tito and Stalin deteriorated, and the Common Form expelled Yugoslavia in June 1949, which effectively banished Yugoslavia from the International Association of Socialist States. Stalin even attempted to have Tito assassinated a number of times following this. In response, Tito wrote to Stalin an amazing message, which you've probably all heard before. So Tito was writing to Stalin: "Stop sending people to kill me. We've already captured 5 of them, one of them with a bomb and another with a rifle. If you don't stop sending killers, I'll send one to Moscow, and I won't have to send a second." What a fucking burn.
Based.
Absolutely fucking based, motherfucker. And I'll send one to Moscow, and I won't have to send a second. Jesus Christ, the ultimate fucking burn. And I'd say that's probably within your Twitter character count as well. So, Jesus Christ. Oh, poor Stalin. Anyway, we'll push on. Okay, so
it's kind of, there's myths that he never sent it.
There's
but fuck it, it's extremely based.
It's
so and fucking... it sounds like Tito. It really does sound like Tito.
Yeah, even if it's not true, the myth is worth it. Sorry, you can probably hear me fucking filling up with vodka here, as if I need any more. Anyway, all right, let's push on. Mm-hmm. After Stalin's death in 1953, relations between Yugoslavia and the USSR improved, at least temporarily, and they began to receive aid from the Comecon, or Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, which was headed by the USSR. But Yugoslavia also accepted aid from the United States. Instead of choosing sides, he was instrumental in kickstarting the non-alignment movement. That is, Tito was instrumental in kickstarting the non-aligned movement, which would function as a third way for countries interested in staying outside of the burgeoning East and West divide. Now, the non-aligned movement was significant for Yugoslavia in establishing strong ties with third world countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and so on. Tito pursued a foreign policy of neutrality during the Cold War, willing to cooperate with all countries providing they wouldn't use their influence to pressure Yugoslavia to take sides. Tito's Yugoslavia provided major assistance to anti-colonialist movements in the Third World, such as the National Liberation Front in Algeria and the liberation movements of the Portuguese colonies in Africa. On the 7th of April 1963, the country changed its official name to the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, and the country began a number of reforms. These reforms encouraged private enterprise and greatly relaxed restrictions on religious expression. Now, I'm kind of brushing over a lot of stuff with regards to Yugoslavia proper. We're going to talk, of course, a lot more about that when we start talking about socialism. We start talking about market socialism and all these sorts of things. So we're sort of we're just getting a few
No, it's good
snapshots.
because otherwise, yeah, we're gonna be here for 48 hours.
Yeah,
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 that's perfectly
exactly.
fine. Yeah,
So we're sort of jumping from piece to piece here now that Yugoslavia's socialist Yugoslavia is finally established.
yeah. Let's go through the biography.
We'll get this
Quick
done. Yeah,
bullet
let's just
points. I
fucking
don't
get it
know
done.
how much people want to know about how
Yeah, there's a lot
if
here.
he wipes his ass from the front or the back.
What the fuck did he eat on every second Tuesday of the month? Like, what the fuck? Like, let's push through this fairly quickly. It's coming to the end
Sure.
now. So for anyone who's like,
No, no,
oh.
you're fine. You're fine. Let's go. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in 1971, there were new constitutional amendments introduced aimed at decentralizing the country by granting greater autonomy to republics and provinces. The federal government would retain authority only over foreign affairs, defence, internal security, monetary affairs, free trade within Yugoslavia, and development loans to poorer regions. Control of education, healthcare, and housing will be exercised entirely by the governments of the republics and the autonomous provinces. On the 1st of January 1967, Yugoslavia became the first communist country to open its borders to all foreign visitors and abolish visa requirements. On the 16th of May 1974, the new constitution was passed and the 82-year-old Tito was named president for life, a status that he would enjoy until his death from gangrene, of all things, in May 1980. Now, Tito's greatest strength in the eyes of many Western communists had been in suppressing nationalist insurrections and maintaining unity throughout the country. Now, with such a view, it was Tito's call for unity and related methods that held together the people of Yugoslavia. And I'll just finish up the biography with this piece from Michael Parenti, talking about Tito's achievements in former Yugoslavia, from To Kill a Nation, the attack on Yugoslavia. And Michael Parenti states that after World War II, socialist Yugoslavia became something of an economic success. Between 1960 and 1980, it had one of the most vigorous growth rates, along with free medical care and education, a guaranteed right to an income, 1 month vacation with pay, a literacy rate of over 90%, and a life expectancy of 72 years. Yugoslavia also offered its multi-ethnic citizenry affordable public transportation, housing, and utilities in a mostly publicly owned market socialist economy. As of late 1990, better than 60% of the total labour force was in the public sector, much of it self-managed. This was the life and legacy of Comrade Josip Broz Tito. That's it. That's me done.
Let me just end this with one extremely personal experience.
Please.
My grandpa, God rest his soul, was a military man, an inspector, and so on, and a staunch supporter of Yugoslav-style Marxism, but he also had great respect both for the USSR and Cuba. This man was born in a 14-member family. His mother couldn't read. His father couldn't read. He lost 3 of his brothers before they were even 5, because back in the kingdom there was absolutely pretty much no healthcare, whatever to speak of. So this man, born to an illiterate mother, illiterate father, in a massive family, living in a village that was no more than 150 people. In his lifetime, he was properly educated. He managed to build a 2-story house from the money that he earned by working every day, and a non-interest base, so a credit with absolutely no interest given to him by a bank. He managed to get one of his sons through university, and live a very a life that without Tito and without the Yugoslav experience, he would have never gone through. He would have just been a fucking another serf on another field, toiling away without ever even being given the single opportunity to read a book, as he wouldn't be able to. So was it socialist? Was it not socialist? We're going to discuss this later.
Mm-hmm.
But did Tito and the party and Yugoslavia as an experiment in general bring more, not only wealth, but opportunity to people that never would have even imagined having any? It did, without this moment of hesitation, I say it. And I have this man, and no, don't tell me, oh, that's a Scotsman. Go fuck yourself. I have this man that is an absolute proof of that. An angel of a man, who nowadays, in today's I'm not going to specify from what Balkan country I am from,
Mm.
but and from today's Balkans, he would have been eaten alive by this rampant, insane market system. I just wanted to leave it on that point. Uh, Tito's life might have been whatever it was like. A lot of it might have been manufactured. He did some very stupid shit from time to time. The party in general did, probably not his fault. But
Mm.
the all-round impact that they had on the people of the region, undebatably positive.
Mm. Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus. You know, you look at anybody who lived during that time, and like they all want to go. Everybody seems to want to go back to that. And there are people who literally describe it as fucking heaven. Like literally, it seems almost like fucking melodramatic and ridiculous. You know, and I've talked to my fair share of fucking like Russian comrades and stuff like that, and especially the older comrades will tell me about how the USSR was just a lot better, even like in the fucking 70s and the 80s and like the later years when things sort of went off track a little bit. But especially people from former Yugoslavia, they really have some really fucking great things to say about it, and you can't just
Yeah, I
write
don't know if
off.
we're Yeah, you absolutely cannot. I don't know if we're going to talk about it later in some of the topics, but there are, I would argue, even which is very sad to hear, even the majority of people in, I cannot talk about Bosnia, it's very different there, or Macedonia, but in Serbia
Mm,
or Croatia, which were, arguably two out of the three key states of the country, there's so much reactionary sentiment nowadays
mm,
that has been manufactured by the newly established elites and so on, that while there are hundreds of thousands or millions of people who are extremely nostalgic, for every person who is Yugo nostalgic, you have two brainwashed, uh, boot licking little bitches that love the stench of boss's cock ramming up their ass. I'm sorry, this is a child-friendly program, but
Jesus,
absolutely.
fucking hell.
We'll talk about that later. I know it's in the later topics. Yeah.
Fucking hell, that was intense. Yeah, no, so, okay, so, great, thank you very, very much for that. Okay, good. We've covered the history and the biography. Holy fuck. I can't believe you just said that. That's the alcohol, folks. Um,
It is.
there,
It is.
there was a question that I,
Nothing wrong with a dick up your ass. I'm not saying that. It's
no,
lovely to
no,
have
of
a dick
course
up
not.
your ass.
Lovely
It's
stuff.
it's a way of speaking. Come on. I mean,
No, I mean you don't have too many people who are too worried. People are more focused on what you actually mean. I think probably here. Okay, good. There is one question here in the chat that maybe you can shine a light on that I don't know anything about, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on that. Do you know anything about the relationship between Tito and, I'm probably pronouncing this terribly, Milovan Milovan Gilas, I don't know, Milovan Dilas, seems to be a Yugoslav
yeah,
communist
jealous.
politician.
Yeah, yeah,
Gilas, okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they not much. I know the jealous had a key role in defining what socialist path Yugoslavia is going to take. He was extremely critical of the USSR style of state-run socialism,
Mm.
and I know that he was one of the key architects of this idea of worker self-management. But other than that, I wouldn't go into too many details.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm just seeing here now because I had a second there, so I just Wikipedia him, and he apparently identified as a democratic socialist. So I'm not sure if I'd whatever you want to take from that,
Yeah,
feel free. Yeah, good, good, good. All right, so let's go ahead and push on to the next question that we had here. Now we're getting into the more ideological stuff, which I think people are quite curious to know about. So the big question is: was former Yugoslavia socialist? And if it was socialist, then I suppose, what kind of socialism was it? Now, of course, you all know the answer: market socialism. But how does that fit into a Marxist framework, or more specifically, a Marxist-Leninist framework? So, if it's okay with you, comrade, I might just jump. I might just say a few words. I'll give my very cursory understanding, and then you can give your much more in-depth,
Sure.
um, your much more in-depth understanding, and yeah, we'll push forward this. Okay, so
Shoot, shoot.
look, anytime you want to ask, is ex-socialists, you need to define socialism. Lenin himself said these were fruitless. These were, fruitless disputes. You're not really going to get anywhere with such conversations. But there is a commonly accepted ML definition. There are vague definitions from the social democratic tradition. There are definitions from the MLM tradition, from the Trotskyist tradition, and so on and so forth. So there are many different definitions of socialism, probably about 12 or 13, depending on your particular ideology. From the Marxist-Leninist perspective, socialism is the transitionary stage from capitalism to communism, which is ushered in by the dictatorship of the proletariat. Now, my party, the Communist Party of Ireland, defined socialism in accordance with this Marxist-Leninist tradition as such. A socialist society is one in which publicly owned and controlled enterprises become the dominant form of ownership in the economy under a government made up of the organised working class. This need not exclude some forms of private ownership continuing to exist for some time. Economic planning is necessary in a socialist society to prevent booms and slumps that are a persistent feature of capitalism. Centralised planning enables the best use to be made of the country's resources and the technical skill of its workers, and to protect the needs of the people as a whole. Socialism makes all economic, political, social and cultural areas of life subject to full democratic accountability with the active participation of the people. As we can see, Yugoslavia maps onto this definition perfectly. Now, there are different periods, of course, of Yugoslavia's development. There's earlier stages, from 1945, 1948, all the way up to the 1990s, and there were things were different depending on what moment you were looking at. There were reforms at later dates and so on and so forth. But importantly, in Yugoslavia, you always had a strong dictatorship of the proletariat presiding over a largely centrally planned economy. And the dominant form of ownership was publicly owned and controlled enterprises, and virtually all economic, political, social and cultural areas of life were subject to full democratic accountability, with the active participation of the people who would generally manage or control their own workplaces. And of course, it was on the road from capitalism to communism. So yes, Yugoslavia, of course, was socialist. And especially it covers. There's a lot of different definitions that people will give of socialism in terms of MLs might focus that it's a centrally planned economy, sort of moving towards communism. Ultra leftists and anarchists and others might say that it's worker ownership, the means of production, and so on and so forth. But in the 1950s, socialist self-management was introduced, which reduced the state management of enterprises. Managers of socially owned companies were supervised by worker councils, which were made up of all employees with one vote each. The worker councils also appointed the management, often by secret ballots. Okay, so you were choosing your own manager, which is something that is basically you can't even imagine under a capitalist society, So I suppose the question here is it does map loosely onto the Marxist-Leninist definition of socialism in terms of the move towards communism, in terms of being quite planned. It was, however, market socialist. The economy was organised as a mixture of a strong planned socialist economy for all necessities, whereas luxury goods and commodities were produced and distributed via a devolved market socialist economy. The constitution contained a law of self-management that ordered all enterprises to be owned by the workers. Competition between enterprises was allowed, and the workers themselves made decisions democratically about prices and output level. Very much akin to worker cooperatives that we see today, but ultimately operating under and within a socialist system and contributing to a socialist society. And that's pretty much true all the way up until the end, really around 1990. But there was sort of a fizzling out there from maybe the mid 70s, from 1974 onwards. Things did sort of start to go in the opposite direction. But generally, I would say yes, it was absolutely socialist from a Marxist-Leninist perspective. But yeah, market socialist. Yugopnik, tell me, what do you think of that? Was that rambling nonsense? Was there some grains of truth in
No, it
there?
was
What
pretty
do you think?
correct. It was pretty correct. I'll give you my take and then we can melt them.
Please.
So, was it socialist? In my opinion, hell yes, it was. Every country worldwide that attempted socialism or anarchism or anarcho-syndicalism or to even establish the dictatorship of the proletariat, or at the very least, as Marx coined it, the first stage of communism. Um, Understanding of what works and what simply doesn't. The concept of market socialism and worker self-management in general put forward the idea that during the transitional period, the power in the workplace should be fully allocated to what we'll call work councils, as you previously mentioned it, for practicality sense. So it was very similar to what Mr. Professor Wolf advocates for. Management
That's
is
right. Yeah.
chosen from the bottom up and has term limits, which they can hold. Worker councils are elected, and they kind of operate like boards do in modern capitalist companies, which would serve, as the ruling body of any and all enterprises. And what is very important to note is that unless granted special permission, enterprises could be no larger than 5 to 15 people in
That's
Yugoslavia.
right. Yeah.
So companies which were given special permission to grow larger than that had very strong requirements when it comes to what they had to give back to their workers. In my hometown, for example, a massive international tire making company wanted to open its doors. So the party said, okay, sure, but if you want to hire 200 families, you have to make homes for 200 families. So they literally did that. Got 200 houses for employees for free for life in exchange for the right of opening a factory in Yugoslavia. And that's pretty much what defined market socialism, both in a good and a bad way. Their willingness to kind of go midway. They try to use capitalist concepts as competition between, as competition between socially ran enterprises, but also ensure that said enterprises serve the interests of employees first and foremost. And when you think about it originally, because the Tito and then the party looked at what needs to be done, and they absolutely always stated, this is all very often put out of context, that market socialism is a transitionary period. It is not what Yugoslavia stems to go towards. It was kind of a, I'm not saying it was a better choice or a worse choice. I'm just saying it was a more pacifist approach to kind of getting the, using the state to push the bourgeois out of existence by democratizing private enterprise. But, this eventually, now comes my criticism, degenerated, and is the main reason I'm not much of a market socialist myself, even though nowadays some fucking streamers call themselves Marxist, market socialists, and they don't even know who the fuck Joseph Broz Tito was.
The less we
But
say, the better.
yeah, absolutely. But you see, just like yeah, let me get yeah. So shit, fuck, I'm drunk. So
Me too.
many people in the fucking in the just like many people in the state who ran everything back in the USSR, many, not, I'm not saying the majority, but many did become these fucking careerists, apparatchiks. I hate using the word because there was a word used by socialists that inside of the USSR criticizing these guys for not quite literally being true to their ideals, and the fucking Westerners have not the West, the capitalist has taken this term apparatchik to use it against of socialist countries so fucking often that they hate using it, but I'll use it in this case. So just like in the USSR state, many apparatchiks, many people, many of the people in the state for careerist goals, that the same thing happened in the worker committees. because these guys, if they managed to get enough terms in, they would amass so much wealth that they practically became this sort of new non-proletarian sort of I wouldn't call it bourgeois because they wouldn't own the company.
Yeah,
Dumb,
yeah,
but uh, uh, but close to class. One that is in opposition to the local proletariat. Materially is in a position because they want to amass more inside of the board, inside of the company. So, you know how it goes. With more money, you have more power. So these guys, after Tito died, these newly formed elites, strongly cooperated with reactionary elements as well as foreign intelligence agencies, and what came later as the disbandment of Yugoslavia as we knew it into the tribal mess that it is today. So, very ironically, by trying to go with a more, use the word, but I'll use it, democratic approach to uh, turning an economy which was ran by profit into an economy that is ran by the people for the profit, which will be distributed to the people as a transitional period, ended up doing some amazing things, but also ended up creating its own that ended up being quite the pain in the fucking ass.
that's a
I judge people. I judge if somebody's bad. I don't believe in bad or good, but if somebody's better than somebody else, intention is what matters. And the intention when creating market socialism was absolutely positive.
mm.
But, but yeah, shit
Yeah.
fucking happened, man.
I can definitely understand the drive to want to do market socialism, so that they could cooperate with East and West, so that you can have this independent, state in and of itself, because being an Irish Socialist Republican, that is one of the things that we're really fighting for. We want an independent socialist republic. Of course, when we say independent in this day and age, it doesn't mean a fucking thing, because if you try to be socialist anyway, you're fucking out on your own, so it doesn't matter anyway. So like, everybody's fucking independent if you're a socialist country at this stage, or at least a socialist leaning country, heading in that direction. So I can definitely understand that, and of course there are issues with just sort of taking the sort of the USSR, Soviet Russia kind of model, and trying to copy and paste that onto every other country. You do need to sort of adapt to the material conditions of each location that you're in. So I can definitely understand and appreciate that. But as you said, and as you rightly said, there are criticisms to be made, and there were mistakes made along the way that can't be ignored. Which does lead into the next question on revisionism. So we will be talking about revisionism, and we did have a question that maybe you'd be quite good at answering this. Maybe you know a little bit about this. The relationship. I'm doing this now at the moment where I'm saying, what do you think about the relationship between Tito and Mr. X? What do you think about the relationship between Tito and God? What do you think about the relationship between Tito and? But yeah, this is a couple of, we've had a couple of questions here now with that same sort of theme. One of the big ones here is, what do you think about the relationship between Tito and Enver Hoxha? I'm probably
Hoxha gang in this.
Yeah, no, we do have a few anti-revisionist heads in the chat here regularly on the
God
streams.
bless, God bless.
Yeah, and they've got their heart in the right place, I suppose. We want to stay on the road to socialism and the road to communism at all stages. So what do you think? What do you think of that? What do you think of that? Do you know much about that?
I'm not going to go too deep into it.
Yeah.
You
can touch on it.
I'll just say this. Imagine Hoxha, Tito, and Stalin in a polygamous relationship. Well, Hoxha's the guy that's in love with Stalin, but Joseph is the guy that's keeps this, that's the let's call it the sexiest in the relationship, and and Joseph leaves this polygamous relationship, and he starts living on his own. And Hoxha's like, "What the fuck, man? I always wanted Stalin. Stalin liked you. and now you left this shit. So it's kind of a feeling of being extremely underappreciated by a ever evolving world that got Hodja kind of bunker drunk. So in a real life example of a polygamous relationship falling apart, it would result in sadness and drinking and drugs or whatever. But in Hodja's case, it resulted in me building many bunkers on my on my fucking Albanian seaside. No, man, I actually know Albanian Hodjoists, and God bless whatever floats your boat. But nah, that guy wasn't exactly, uh, I'll just say this: jealous boyfriend.
That's the best analogy. That's the best explanation of Edinburgh Hodge I've ever heard in my life. I don't know if it's entirely accurate. I'm sure there's people. I'm sure there's people are going to be going mad in the chat now that you've said that, but that's fucking amazing.
I know. That's why I said this.
Fucking
shit,
amazing.
I want the fucking reaction. But he's when you date. In our case, we're both cis and straight. So I'm going to talk from a cis straight perspective. You start dating a girl that dated somebody who is 10 times out of your league.
Oh, that's the worst.
So even though now you are dating this girl, so you won. She chose you, but you're constantly obsessed. You constantly are thinking about this fucking ex that could come back at any moment, who's like a fucking 10 out of 10.
Supermodel, yeah.
Well, Josip is the 10 out of 10. Josip Tito is the 10 out of 10. Hodja is the new boyfriend, and instead of concentrating and consummating the beautiful relationship that he has, he's just constantly thinking about the ex that could come back at any moment.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah. I'm gonna have to clip that out and fucking make a separate YouTube video.
Fuck yeah, do it, motherfucker. I don't know.
Highlights from the stream. Oh, brilliant.
I think everybody watching now is pretty theoretically informed. So I'm just throwing out my insane fucking metaphors to get some entertainment out there.
Yeah, very, very, very much appreciated. All right, fantastic. I'll take one more I'll take one more question before we jump into the revisionism question. Comrade Beremans asked, "What are Yugopnik's thoughts on Milosevic, Milosevic? Also, does he have
Milosevic? Yeah.
Milosevic, and also, do you have any book recommendations for people to learn about Yugoslavia?" And they also said, "P.S. Sláinte," so fucking Sláinte, Comrade Beremans. Yeah, I hope you're getting as drunk as I am. So, go man, Yugopnik, you take over now while I just fucking get pished on in front of 136 people.
I'll answer the second one very quickly. Most of the information I get on Yugoslavia is through lots of different shorter academic articles that I've gone through back in university, but also on a daily basis. I do not think there is a completely 100% unrevisionist book that completely concentrates on Yugoslavia that I would recommend at this time. But to get info on Yugoslavia from a lens that is both academic but also relatively objective, Paul already mentioned the gentleman. Michael Parenti is a great way to go. If you don't have a lot of time because of work or studying or whatever, many of his speeches can do a great job of introducing you to the fall of Yugoslavia and to Yugoslavia itself, but also many of his works can as well. Thoughts on Milosevic? Milosevic can go fuck himself, that piece of fucking shit. That guy was not a socialist in any way. That guy was not a representative of the ideals of socialism in any way. That piece of shit was a banker, ultra. I wouldn't do him the benefit of the doubt of even calling him a nationalist. That guy used nationalist rhetoric in order to stay in power. By the way, Milosevic, for all you guys who don't know, is the person who became the president of Yugoslavia at one moment, over a decade after Tito died, which used his position to further divide the country on ethnic basis. That party that he was ruling over at that time was only socialist in name. This man was an absolute uh, personification of the betrayal of all of the ideals of Yugoslav society. He had his version in Croatia and he had his version in Bosnia, and all three of those motherfuckers can go fuck themselves. I'm sorry if you didn't tell me if I can curse in your stream.
We've already cursed so much. It's just fucking out the window. Just have
Yeah,
fucking
I
at it.
apologize. I apologize. But seriously, this
Got
I get
Irish, we
pissed
got
off when
Slavs. Come on.
hear about this bald motherfucker's name. Uh, his wife was pretty much a mob lord. His son was a uh, insane drug dealer, a money laundering piece of shit, and they turned something that hundreds of thousands died to build into a little corrupt crime syndicate that lasted for 9 years and that cost an additional 150,000 lives during the civil wars. So yeah, my thoughts on Milosevic is that he doesn't deserve any thoughts at all. Swollen up by history and never mentioned again.
Yeah, really, really good take there. Fantastic, thank you very much, comrade. I just sent a little message there to the Google Hangouts because a comrade has asked you to say something which I can't pronounce. The spelling is CYKA.
Oh, suka, bljat. Yeah, suka. It's in Cyrillic mixed with Latinica, which we call šljakovica, but depending on the parts of the Balkans. But yeah, suka, bljat. And God bless you, whoever. I don't know. I'm very drunk. I keep saying God bless you like I'm some sort of U.S. Southern hick that just says this fucking thing, but whatever.
Fantastic. All right, brilliant. Thank you very much, comrades. That was very, very. At least I think it was very, very good. I'm a little bit too fucking drunk to comprehend that and that's going on right now, but I think it was very.
You try and say it. Say suka bljat. I want you to say suka bljat.
Suka
bljat.
I actually
do
you know there's a
dobro, brate. Bravo. Very
Bravo.
good. That was very good.
There's a video of Angela Davis at in Soviet Russia, and she pronounces Vladimir Lenin's like the full name, and she does the full on, fucking Slav stereotypical voice when she's pronouncing his name. I can't pronounce it. I don't know, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin or something like that. But she does like the proper fucking Russian stereotypical
Vladimir,
accent.
yes.
She did it. She fucking it's on YouTube. It's fucking hilarious. Go look that up.
You have to send me that afterwards.
I will.
Love that.
Yeah. All right, fucking hell. Just if you're watching the stream, just go off and have a little look at Angela Davis talking about this, and then return back here because we're going to talk about revisionism and was whether or not Yugoslavia and Tito were these terrible revisionists as they are often painted to be. So okay,
I'll let you take this one, and then I'll let you take this one pretty much fully, and then I'll jump in if I have some contesting points. But based on most of our conversations, I think we'll agree on most of them. So yeah, shoot.
Hopefully now, if I'm making an absolute dick of myself, just fucking jump in and say, Paul, shut the fuck up, you weirdo.
Paul, shut the fuck up, you weirdo, by saying that you're making a dick of yourself. You're not. You're fucking lovely. Fucking shit. Oh, I'm
clipping that out. I'm clipping that out. That's next week's video.
So that means you have to listen through all this shit again. Oh God, man.
Let me find the fucking timestamp. All right, that's waffle.
You gotta edit this drunk, because if you listen to this shit sober, the cringe is going to be fucking insane. Oh God, yeah,
the cringe. Okay, an hour and 17 minutes in, I'm gonna have to edit that out. And I'll turn it into some big massive fight.
Did you fucking write it down just now? Oh,
I had a little look on the YouTube channel and I saw how long we've been streaming for, and I was just like, all right, grand, let's clip it out. Let's have the crack. All right. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is a big question now. Was it revisionists? This is similar to the question that we had before. Was it socialist? Was Yugoslavia socialist? And that's it's a big question, and it can be interpreted in lots of different ways. So what is revisionism? This term is thrown around at just about every socialist experiment in history and generally by ultra leftists. Not always, but it often is the case, you know. Revisionists are people who distort the key teachings of Marxism for opportunistic ends. Okay, ends that lead towards capitalism, towards supporting the bourgeoisie, supporting bourgeois interests, I suppose. For example, when social democrats try to argue that we should spend all our time and energy on bourgeois parliamentary activity rather than revolutionary activity, and they take a couple of quotes out of context from Marx and Lenin to bolster this idea. This is revisionism. You know, people will often take, you know, like one or two lines out of left-wing communism, an infantile disorder by Lenin, and then they'll say, "Look, we need to fucking vote for Biden," or some shit like that. This is peak revisionism, and it's a joke. And you don't need to be an ultra leftist. You don't need to be an anarchist. You don't need to be a Maoist. You don't need to be an anti-revisionist to make that observation. That's true. That's absolutely getting away from the revolutionary necessity. You know, it's denying the revolutionary necessity, which is essential to Marxism. You know, it's revising the revolutionary canon to suit a bourgeois reformist agenda. Okay, now another example of revisionism will be the use of class terminology that doesn't base class on one's relationship to the means of production. For example, you'll hear liberals talking about the political class, the welfare class, the professional managerial class, and so on. And I did a video on that, so people are looking at it and just like, wait, what the fuck are you talking about? Professional managerial class? That's petty bourgeois. What do you mean? No, it's not. I did a video on that. It's only 5 minutes. Go have a little look at that there if you want to hear a little bit more about that. So that's another example of revisionism. That's quite common. We see this all the time, especially in the US lefts, the US sort of social democratic kind of Bernie bro kind of left that has sort of sprung up around kind of the Chapo Trap House community and so on and so forth. Sorry, I didn't mean to call out people who like Chapo Trap House and all sort of thing. That's all good stuff.
No, you didn't. You didn't say anything bad. Chap
Yeah.
was pretty based, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's
They do their part.
yeah, they definitely do their part. So it's good stuff. But there is kind of a culture there, unfortunately, which doesn't fully understand the Marxist understanding of class relations and you know what constitutes social class, and that's really really important if we are to engage in any kind of revolutionary Marxist activity. Now, the problem is we don't all agree on what the key teachings are that constitute the Marxist canon. This is especially prominent with ultra-leftists. This is also prominent, maybe to a slightly lesser degree, with Marxist-Leninist Maoists, who might argue that, for example, like Cultural Revolution or Protracted People's War are essential to revolutionary Marxism. And so if you reject the universal necessity of these things, you can easily be called a revisionist. I'm called a fucking revisionist every second day. Is Socialism 101 there in the chat? Yeah, I'm a fucking dirty dangist, and because I don't see the universality of these things. You know, they definitely work in some circumstances. But I don't see the universality of them as being essential to revolutionary Marxism. You know, I'd be more in line with the Bolshevik style, the Bolshevik methodology, you know. So look, I'm a Marxist-Leninist, and from a Marxist-Leninist perspective, I would say that no, Tito and former Yugoslavia were not revisionists, at least in the early years. At least in the early years, you know, that's really important because things did change as they went on. At that point, they didn't distort the key tenets of Marxism to suit bourgeois interests. They maintained a firm dictatorship of the proletariat with a tighter grip on the bourgeoisie and other reactionary elements than most Eastern Bloc countries. This was most pronounced in the sort of 1945 to 1948 period. That tight grip on the bourgeoisie and other reactionary elements did loosen as time went on. And there are, for example, Maoists who would make the argument that actually the dictatorship of the proletariat would transform into a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. I don't fully buy that. I've read a few arguments on that, but I can't fully see that. But you know, I'm sure there's about 3 or 4 people in the chat now who are really, you know, giving it socks and really going for it, explaining why I'm engaging in revisionism right now. But anyway, however, they were unfortunately forced by economic necessity in later years to somewhat, let's say, open their economy, Yugoslavia and Tito, by international capitalist forces, especially from the 1970s onwards, and even more so after Tito's death. You know, I'm thinking especially with the constitutional changes that would have occurred in 1974. But this was due to economic necessity imposed by heavily increasing levels of debt annually in Yugoslavia to sustain their system. Okay, so that was a consequence of the material reality of what Yugoslavia was dealing with at that time. So, no, from a Marxist-Leninist
Just
perspective.
one little thing. I agree with everything that you've said. Just
Yep,
because the
jump in.
debt, the Yugoslav debt,
Mm,
which was very high for that time,
mm.
when adjusted for inflation, was lower than the individual debt of any of the current republics that were created after the fall of Yugoslavia.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah,
That's fucking hilarious. So a lot of reactionaries in Serbia, Croatia, Macedonia, Bosnia, Croatia, they tend to say, "Oh, Yugoslavia, they left us with such a big debt after the country fell apart. The goddamn commies left us with a debt."
that's right.
Motherfucker, that was a ginormous country that spanned the entirety of Southeastern Europe, and your little petty bourgeois fucking shithole has more debt than that entire massive state. So I'll just leave that at that. Everybody with half a brain, the argument that Yugoslav debt kind of impaired today's capitalist and market development is just it's a waste of everybody's time. But it's a big argument that PragerU likes to use. Like that they repeat, oh, Russia is not doing badly in capitalism now because of capitalism. It is doing badly because they still need to get rid of the dirty communists that are still in the country, and apply that to any other place.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. It's really, really important. In fact, in 1981, I'm just looking at the figures here now. Yugoslavia's debt was just 20.11% of GDP. Excuse me, that's in 1971. Which is, when compared with the UK, fairly low. The UK had 67.95%, the USA had 46.64%, Germany had 17.87%, Italy had 41.46%. So it's a relatively low rate when you put it in the international stage. So there is a kind of a storm in a teacup kind of situation here. They're making mountains out of molehills, unfortunately, over this situation. There was a debt there, but I mean, when you compare it to the other, even contemporary, even at that time, countries, it's not actually that much, and it's significantly less than it is now in the countries that have come from former Yugoslavia. So that is important.
Yeah, absolutely. It was undeniably problematic, but compared to how problematic debt is in a market-based system in which we exist right now, it's a fly compared to a moose. Yeah, that's a very weird Slavic saying, a fly compared to a moose. Fuck me. Yo, these fucking drunk streams are a great idea. I don't know why nobody else does this.
We're gonna need to do this every fucking week, I swear.
Extremely fun.
This is great.
I'm not kidding. I would love to. Yeah, we'll talk about this in private. But this is so much fun.
Holy
yeah, please.
Shit, I think I see a fucking.
I just hope it is as much fun for the listeners. Yeah, fucking podcast time. Ooh, that would sell out.
Yeah, we'll fucking be rolling in Patreon dollars. Let's say fucking dollars because.
Paul and Yugopnik in the first episode of their podcast donate $50 and we'll say that the USSR was not socialist. Donate $100 and I don't know, what's worse than that? We'll say that Bernie was the more successful. No, we'll say. Oh, I love.
We'll say that the United States was more of a worker state than China has ever been. That's what we'll fucking say.
Oh yes. Well, I think the quoted
do you know what I'm referencing there?
I actually used to like that motherfucker. I don't fuck. Geez.
Yeah. He's got a good voice.
Cringe is real.
Good voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck's sake. Here we go.
Fucking alpha. Oh my god, alpha aesthetic, and that's this thing.
This is
Nah,
it.
I'm not gonna. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna go there.
Well, yeah, because
Uh,
we could get carried away there. Not we haven't gotten carried away. Luckily, we've maintained our composure so far. You know, we've been very state-like
for the
so far thus
amount that
far.
I've drank, I'm looking at a bottle that pretty much doesn't have anything left. Not
Yeah.
anything. I'm like at least 500 milliliters in. My liver is screaming out to Lenin right now, but
Uh, yeah,
eventually it will stabilize.
I'm trying to figure out.
One another. I know now I'm going off topic, but you quoted Tito on maybe the guys watching are going to be interested. You quoted Tito on Stalin sending an assassin after him, and him saying, "If I send one, it's going to be the last one." Tito, having participated in the partially in the Bolshevik uprising over in the USSR, once said when he was asked, "While I was participating, I heard many things about Lenin and Trotsky, but not once did I hear anything about Stalin."
Yeah, I heard that. Jesus fucking Christ, he was relentless against Stalin, wasn't he? Just fucking.
That is so fucking hardcore, yeah.
Oh, fucking hell, just throwing shade left, right, and center. I'm gonna say throwing shade now. That's my thing. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, let's use American slang. It
Fuck
always
it.
works.
Yeah, I fucking hate that. Do you know? I fucking hate that whenever I'm on these fucking streams. I'm always conscious of the fact that it is an international audience, so I'm always trying to like moderate what I say because I'm like, all right, lads, what's the story? What's the crack? And people just won't fucking understand a word that I'm saying, so I have to fucking use this internationally accepted vernacular, this internationally accepted vocabulary, and it's good to be understood by people, but you lose a little bit of its charm, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, fuck it. Where the fuck were we? All right. Okay. Let's just round it up there. So I just want to say no. I wouldn't say it's revisionist from a Marxist-Leninist perspective at all. I would say that Tito and former Yugoslavia were just dealing with the material conditions as they presented themselves. And to deny such material reality is to venture into the realm of metaphysics, of idealism, and into revisionism itself. So I would say very confidently that at least the first half of the Yugoslav experiment, no way revisionist. There might be an argument for sort of post Tito era, maybe post 1974 era. I'd be willing to listen to some arguments for that, but the arguments I've heard thus far don't really stand up to scrutiny. But look, that might be a question for another day, and we'll leave that to our Maoist comrades to come in and fill in the blanks on that one. Do you want to say anything else on revisionism and this kind of idea?
No, you covered pretty much everything. And I
Class.
think, yeah, I wasted more than enough time with jumping it. But yeah, you that I would have covered it in as well.
Fantastic. Class. All right, good stuff. Now, I'll just take a little look at a few questions we have from the chat here. A few of them have popped up, but I'm fucking drunk, so it's hard to keep track of these things. I should be writing them down, but I'm just sitting here with a fucking vodka in my hand. So let me find a good question for us, and then we'll answer it. Now here's a big one. Here's a big question. Are you ready for this? Prepare yourself. Okay.
I am not. Go.
I'm gonna go anyway. The
Yeah,
partisan.
exactly. Shoot.
The partisan. With a Z.
Yeah,
Asks,
partisan. Bravo.
there you
Dosta
go.
dobro. Bravo. Very good.
This comrade asks, "What's your favorite vodka?" Definitely not fucking Smirnoff. Definitely not
Oh,
this shit.
Jesus fucking Christ. No, that's
Fuck
not
that.
enough. Oh.
Fuck that.
Okay, so from an ideological perspective, I actually
Ideologically,
like.
let's get into the USSR and the best what Marx said about vodka and
No, but seriously, in the Soviet Union, a lot of different bourgeois factories for vodka that used to make exceptionally good vodka for only for the upper echelons of aristocracy were nationalized at one moment, and I'm not sure who said it, but they were ordered to make the same quality vodka under the same defining qualities of filtration of water, and of course of the ethanol that is used in the alcohol, but only for mass consumption by the everyday man. And the first factories that were seized and that started producing that, started in the capital, in Moscow. And in Russian, I mean, the name of the vodka was given Stolichnaya, literally the capital vodka, the vodka from the capital. And this is actually the first one of the first Soviet products that were ever sold in the United States, during the 80s, during the 70s. So a proper Soviet vodka, ironically, even though it was sold even in the US, and is to this day, the degenerate Western comrades like to call it Stoli, because God forbid they say Stolichnaya, because Aya is very difficult to pronounce, apparently, when you only speak one fucking language. But yes, Stolichnaya is actually an excellent vodka that comes from Mother Russia, but it was also created in the Soviet Union, not today's Russia. But my favorite vodka by far is Beluga, which I don't know if you guys know about. Paul, do you know about Beluga?
No, I've heard.
Beluga.
I think you might have mentioned it to me before, but no, I haven't
It's
looked into
this
it so much.
super posh, fucking expensive shit, but it's very, very worth it. It has like a little. It is literally like branded to look like something that I don't know, the Tsar, before getting his ass owned, would have drunk. But still, it is an exceptional vodka. So yes, Beluga taste wise, when I'm a class traitor, and Stolichnaya based on ideology. Those are my two favorite vodkas.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, comrade. Fantastic answer, as always, to everything here. Now, before we proceed with the questions that we've agreed on beforehand, the next one, of course, is what happened to Yugoslavia? How did it fall apart? And is there any hope for reunification in the future? What's the potential for socialism in Yugoslavia? Before we get to that, maybe we'll just take one or two more questions, and then we'll jump into those questions. A couple
Give
of
me
people.
some fun ones. Come on.
Yeah, well, let's see. Now, here's a fucking question. Real shit right here. Prepare yourself, right? You ready? Brace yourself. Brace yourself. Now
Yes,
this,
I'm
I'm not,
watching out of that.
I'm not even fucking around here. I would like to hear Yugopnik's take on the many crimes against humanity committed under the Tito regime, not the word regime, from 1944 to the 1950s. And then I think it says my cousins are weird. I'm not sure what that's related to, but I would say note the sort of the leading nature of this question, regime. Anytime you hear that word regime, always question that one. Always prod that a little bit. What do you think? Crimes against humanity? Is it possible that these are have anything to do with the National Endowment for Democracy, the offshoot of the CIA, or would you say that these are legitimate criticisms?
I'll just say the biggest. I'll say this: the biggest gulag, as Westerners like to define it, in Yugoslavia was Goli Otok. It was a little island on which political prisoners and sometimes even non-political prisoners were also sent. So we're talking rapists, murderers, but also uh, ultra nationalists, reactionaries, even people with fascist leaning ideologies.
Mm.
Some of them that were sent there were sent, you know, because somebody snitched on them, and then afterwards, party officials believed it. But 98% of the time, I can find you quotes on this. It was logical to act in this particular way because otherwise these people would have formed movements that were quite literally contrasting and even dangerous to the socialist Yugoslav ideas. But even these, horrific examples of, um, you know, acting against the civil liberties of their own citizens. Goli Otok, the biggest prison camp in Yugoslavia, approximately had 16,000 people move through it. And this is a Western approximation. This is not by China or Russia or anybody or Yugoslavia back in the day. Approximately 16,000. You know what the population of Yugoslavia was in the average?
What?
Million. In 1991, when the country pretty much objectively died, 23 point, I think it was 5 million. 20 million people country, and the biggest prisoner concentration camp throughout its lifetime contained 16,000 people.
Fairly fucking minimal when you consider like the US. Doesn't the US have like about 24% of the world's prison population right now?
Exactly. Even if we don't compare it to the country with the largest prison population on the planet, which is the US at the current time in 2020, not, right after a world war,
Mm.
it would be insane. Actually, an argument just came to my mind. Let's compare the number of people held in prison in Yugoslavia, uh, so we get the mean, versus the number of Japanese nationals in the US held in prison camps during World War II. Because it's the same argument, Japanese could potentially betray the US and commit crimes on US territory in order to support Japan back over there. In Yugoslavia, most of the people arrested are people who are going to fight for a greater Croatia, greater Serbia, greater Bosnia, ultra-nationalist forces. And I'm pretty sure you would still have at least 100,000 more back over in the US than in Yugoslavia.
Mm.
In the main, like, of course there can be criticisms about the Yugoslav approach to religious freedom and so on, that I absolutely would make, but defining Yugoslavia in any way as a state that overreached when it came to combating local reactionary forces, it didn't. I think it actually underreached at certain points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good answer, Conrad. Fantastic stuff. One question did come up here, which I think probably is worth mentioning, especially given that we've both said probably, if we happen to be in power, and we never fucking will be, drunk arses that we are, if we did happen to be in power, we probably wouldn't take more the market socialist kind of route that we have here. We'd be more Marxist. So what do you think of the fact that there was a lot of repression, locking up, and there was some bad stuff that happened to Marxist-Leninists, often called Stalinists, and so on and so forth. Do you have any thoughts on that and what happened there?
Yes, so I previously in the stream I mentioned how the Yugoslav socialists were afraid that the model that was applied to Romania, Bulgaria, and then partially Poland by the Soviet Union would be applied to Yugoslavia, in which certain governments would be instilled that were not necessarily representatives of the mainstream socialist movement of the said state. And that led them, unfortunately, to very much so overreach, I guess, in how they handled including the most unfortunately Marxist-Leninists, because objectively they were somebody who they should have considered as a viable political opposition in the country.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
one thing that is important to note about Yugoslavia compared to the Soviet Union, it was actually not a fully one-party system. The party was not the government. They
Yeah.
allowed for different parties, as long as they are not reactionary, to participate in the government. And I genuinely think they should have allowed for a Marxist Leninist and even other types of parties. Fuck it, I'm open to many ideas, even different types of ideologies, as long as they are based on Marxist material analysis of the world, to potentially get into government. But again, because they were afraid to not become like their neighbors, they overreached, and at moments, I guess, did shit to brothers in arms that
They shouldn't have.
could, yeah, they could have gone without,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
No.
again, I think it's overhyped by so to make a point about Yugoslavia being in no way socialist, and when it's coming from the left wing, uh, they really tend to overhype exactly this argument that in Yugoslavia MLs were massively imprisoned or hurt or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
The the, the pro-Soviet opinion in Yugoslavia was mostly seen as a counter thesis to, liberal waves that were extremely pro-West. So even if you watch Yugoslav movies and so on, there's one lovely film, an absolutely lovely film, in which they all organize and they make a little party. And there's one guy that emigrated to the USSR and he comes back. And there's one guy that emigrated to the US and he comes back to this small town and they're making a party. And, this US guy is very well dressed. He brought Coca-Cola. They try Coca-Cola for the first time. They're like, oh my God, how is it fizzy? How is it sugary? This is so epic. I want to consume items. And then you have Stalin, this guy who's like, oh man, I am wealthy over in the USSR. I make as much as my boss. Look at all this table. You have like three different classes, even though the society is supposed to be classless, etc., etc. And so this is, this sort of a meme way I'm trying to explain it is that
Mm.
even though Yugoslavia was market socialists, pro-Soviet people were seen as as radical as us, but a bit too far to the edge, and liberals were seen as not radical as us.
Mm.
I don't think the sentiment uh, was as anti-Soviet as it is presented.
Mm.
Not to the
Yeah.
extent at least.
I know. Look, this is the thing. I mean, you'll often have like with any country that's moving towards socialism, or even any country that takes an anti-imperialist, like a principled anti-imperialist position, whether or not they're socialist, they're always going to be. Oh, they're going to be playing up these kinds of things. Do you know? Even from sometimes what appears to be a left-wing perspective. They might say to you, oh, look, they're locking up communists. There's repression of communists in here. So even if you are left-wing, you shouldn't support this actual attempt at building socialism, and this is something that happens time and time again throughout history, and it's happening right now. If you look at, I posted this on Twitter just a couple of days ago, and I might be able to pull it up here actually fairly quickly. If you look at the National Endowment for Democracy, right, which is an offshoot of the CIA, which was used to sort of legitimate regime change and destabilization efforts of various countries. When they fund these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations, the terms that they give to them are extremely left-wing sounding, and I'll pull up some examples here, and controversial. This is a fairly controversial take here because we're going to be talking about Hong Kong, so part of China. We need to, let's look at what they have to say here. Hong Kong, the National Endowment for Democracy in 2019, when the Hong Kong protests were going on, they pledged, and this is from the CIA. This was started under Ronald Reagan's regime in the 1980s, the neoliberal regime. They decided that they were going to give lots and lots of money to expand workers' rights and democracy to the Solidarity Center, the SC. They gave $194,000, 710. Yeah, $710. Didn't pronounce that correctly because I'm drunk. Other things: promoting evidence-based dialogue and policy making, strengthening civil society and human rights protection. So they dress up these extremely reactionary things in left-wing language all the fucking time, and it's still happening to this day, and we don't fucking realize it.
Absolutely do.
You know what I
They
mean?
absolutely do.
And
Absolutely.
it's really frustrating. I mean, the National Endowment for Democracy were instrumental in taking down Evo Morales in Bolivia, instrumental in efforts against against Venezuela, against Maduro in Venezuela. Of course, they pump money into Cuba every year. Of course, against China, any country that's anti-imperialist, Syria, Iraq as well. Not even socialist. Just they're taking a position that doesn't really conform to the interests of the empire of the United States. And so they dress up their criticisms in left-wing language, which is really, really important to understand. You might seem like you're taking a very, radical and left-wing position, but actually in reality, you're just serving the interests of the bourgeoisie. Even if they talk about workers' rights, and sure, look, it's the same fucking thing that Hitler did. What was the National Socialist German Workers' Party or whatever it might be. They understood that left-wing rhetoric was popular at that time, in the fucking 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. And it still is to this day. You still talk about democratic socialism and all these things. You have Bernie Sanders, you have all these, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jeremy Corbyn, all these people talking about socialism. But then you look at their foreign policies and they're basically presenting you with left-wing imperialism, which is better for the people inside that country, inside that territory, maybe. But ultimately, it's not really helping people in the developing world, in the global south, or whatever you want to call it, So it's a very common tactic by imperialist interests to use left-wing language to present, it's a Trojan horse, to push forward right-wing and reactionary ideologies. Do you know what I mean?
It absolutely is. I mean, it was very weird seeing it happen actually in the 90s when different NGOs, including the National Endowment, etc., would look at war crimes, which were committed by these completely neoliberal and sometimes far right wing governments during the falling apart of the Yugoslav state, and they would frame them in a way in which it sounded or was perceived as that socialist states that were created out of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia were committing genocide and war crimes over a non-socialist population, even though these were completely ethnic-based wars in which people were killing each other on the basis not of ideology, but on the basis of faith and nationality. Still, during that entire time, coverage both by Western media, but also by Western on the ground, even Eastern sometimes, so-called neutral parties was anything but neutral.
Absolutely, yeah, really, really good perspective there, Conrad. Fantastic.
Also, it just shows that they can make anything out of
Oh,
the amount of twisting that they can do is insane, which should not lead us down a path in which we us thinking that absolutely everything that is said by Western media is 100% a lie. That's also idiotic.
yeah,
But
it is.
radical skepticism is really required because historical materialism shows us that at least in the last 100 years, the Western perspective was almost always wrong.
Yeah, pretty much WMDs, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Yeah, no, that's
Yep.
just a
Oh, I heard you
mythology.
have. I heard you have WMDs in your backyard. I should
Yeah,
call some CIA up. Yeah.
this is it. This is it, exactly. Listen, all right. Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing. We've been streaming now for nearly 2 hours, and we
Yeah, brother.
we need to talk about what happened to Yugoslavia, how it fell apart. Is there hope for reunification in the future? Maybe a future socialist Yugoslavia, and we're also going to talk about commodities and capitalism and the production of commodities and all sorts of thing, and whether or not competition actually produces the best products. Which is an interesting conversation to have in and of itself. But there's a little bit of a problem here, comrade. And I'm going to be very, very honest with you. And please, viewer discretion advised. I really, really need to use Jax. Do you mind if I run and use the bathroom really quickly? Is that okay? I've been drinking.
Oh, fuck no, go, go. I love it. Yeah, go, do it. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Okay, look, the question is what happened to Yugoslavia? How did it fall apart? And is there any hope for reunification in the future? Now, maybe you can talk a little bit about that while I'm relieving myself. Is that okay? Would you mind
Ah,
sort of?
yes, I will. I do. No
Okay.
worries, no worries.
Well,
No,
can I?
I thought you Irish had a bigger bladder, but
No,
apparently,
not at
apparently
all.
with vodka you did not.
We're
Okay,
cursed,
that's fine.
cursed with these
I'm
tiny
fucking with you.
fucking
Go, go, go.
chickpea bladders. But the one thing I will fucking say, right? The one thing I will say on this issue of what happened to Yugoslavia, how it fell apart, and if there's any hope for reunification, and so on, it appears to me, being an evil authoritarian commie and so on and so forth, it appears that the reformed constitution of 1974 decentralized Yugoslavia, okay, which would contribute to the eventual dissolution of Yugoslavia by giving too much power to regional governance, which fomented disunity. Okay, so that's just a little thought I'm going to leave you with. I'm going to let you talk about that. I'll let you know when I'm back in, but for now I'm just going to run and use the bathroom. Okay, so you fire away, comrade.
Absolutely,
Class, I'll be back in
absolutely.
sometime.
Okay, so now that we're left alone without this pissy motherfucker, I'll try to be quick. So I have just a few points. So the first one is World War II ends, right? And you have these conflicting nationalities that have a lot of issues with each other that really, really need to be resolved. But what did they do? They didn't address them. They shoved everything under the carpet, and the party, under the idea of creating a new state, never really, tackled the grievances that they needed to tackle. So instead of through education, but also through massive relief for certain parts of the country, uh, instead of doing that, they kind of completely went quiet. Anybody who talked about what the Croats did, or what not the Croats, the Ustasha or the Chetniks or the Muslim SS troops, etc., was seen as a person being divisive inside of the republic. Uh, of course, I'm not saying they should have played the blame game and say, "Oh, these are the main bad guys, these are the main good guys." I'm just saying this should have been addressed. It wasn't addressed, and a lot of bad blood was left between the ethnicities of ex-Yugoslavia, which later allowed reactionaries and even fascists. I would definitely call many of the movements in the post-Yugoslav states quasi-fascist, allowed them to use these grievances and use this bad blood to stir up new conflict. So because they didn't solve this stirred up new conflict. Also, different parts of Yugoslavia were industrialized or ready for industrialization earlier than others when Yugoslavia was formed, because there were richer parts of this whole territory, establishment of Yugoslavia, which allowed for much quicker and better establishing of a sort of market socialist state. So you had Slovenia in the north, you had Croatia, you had northern Serbia, which was very rich, and you had southern Serbia, Macedonia, and Montenegro, where establishing, not establishing, but quickly developing a potential socialist state was very difficult because they were incredibly underdeveloped compared to the north. This was not addressed properly through worker self-management, because that allowed for quite literally the already richer parts of Yugoslavia to become even richer quicker, while the developed the parts that were less economically developed to stagnate behind. You had a moment in which in Macedonia you had like a 30% unemployment rate, and in Slovenia you had like 6%, 5, 4. I don't know the exact number. Um, so I'm not blaming this directly on the party. Really, who could have fucking predicted this shit? But this was definitely a problem, and this is a problem that any socialists in, for example, larger Western states like the U.S. or Canada or even Mexico or Brazil will need to address if they move to a new system, because there are parts of their countries that are leagues behind the other parts, and that really needs to be balanced out unless you want separatism as it develops, as the newly formed socialist state develops. And I guess I could go with this for a long time, but I'll finish with the third point, which is that market socialism slowly started to be kind of unsupportable because of all of the concessions that the party had made through the years, as Paul said, with the new constitution,
Mm-hmm.
but also things that happened before and after, and the cracks were kind of showing. So um, the radical unemployment rates in certain parts of the country, the ever growing bubble of this new bureaucratic class, combined with the fact that as the Soviet Union was falling apart, um, in the West for in any way not completely and hardcore aggressively moving on Yugoslavia fell apart. So did the country itself, unfortunately. And those are kind of my points. So the main thing, the 3 points I want to leave you with that you haven't heard before, because you have heard about how what the CIA did, what Western forces did, how it was always in their interest for this country to be disbanded, because quite literally a Balkanized, I mean it's the Balkans, a Balkanized country is easier to rule. Divide et imperum, fucking Julius Caesar said it himself, divide and conquer. But three main points that I'm now criticizing Yugoslavia. I'm not trying to sound like I'm hating on the place. I'm just trying to not, for leftists that tend to see people talking about historical socialist attempts. I want them to see that, yes, we support places like Yugoslavia and the USSR and Cuba and even in some cases China, but we are also extremely critical of these places. So my criticism, again, three parts: did not address inter-ethnic issues. Um, the country got industrialized and developed at different paces in different regions, and market socialism worked for quite a while, but they needed to change it into another system, and they waited for too long and they didn't, and that created a new elite which was reactionary and counter-revolutionary and counter-socialist in the long run. And the combination of those three together, spiced up with some good old imperialist throat fucking, and you have what we see as the Balkans today, which is pretty much Game of Thrones on steroids, but it's the last season and it lasts all the time. So the worst part of it, and it's forever, and it sucks. And I live here. Please kill me. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. Communism is very, very good. Yeah, yeah. That's my contribution.
Go fuck yourself, man.
I jumped in sort of halfway through it there, and you were talking about how we support China at certain points, and I gave a little thumbs up to the audience there, a little wink and a nudge, a nod there, China's class. What else? I don't know. Did you address the decentralization that occurred in 1974, Yugoslavia?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to go
In
back.
general,
in general. Okay. I'm gonna have to
Hmm?
fucking go in and re-watch this at a later stage. I'm not sure. I don't even think we need to overdub this stream with your recording, because I think it's gone fairly well. I don't think Stalin's Ghost has been too upset by everything you're saying here. I think that Stalin's Ghost is actually quite
Oh
happy.
shit.
Yeah. So that's
He's yeah,
yeah.
happy by his ex Tito. I'm surprised that Hoja's ghost didn't attack us though.
Maybe it was Hoja all along, the cunt.
Motherfucker. He puts bunkers over your routers,
What a
so
piece of
that
shit.
there's no fucking connection.
Oh, what a piece of shit. Fucking anti-revisionist. Here we go. All right. Very good, very good. Okay. Let me just have a little look at the chat here and see if there's any question. Now, there's a bit of a silly question here, but it's fun. It's fun. If this stream is nothing else, it's fun. We're all having fun, aren't we?
Exactly.
Fun.
Raw fun, man.
All
Very fun,
right.
mate.
Tell me,
Yeah, sorry.
did
Hmm?
you play Grand Theft Auto 4? Did you play that? That's very important. Or do you know
Fuck yeah, I
about it?
played Grand Theft before.
Okay, all right. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on Nico Bellic from GTA 4? He's supposed to be from Yugoslavia. That's a good contributor to the show. Tank Punk always asking some interesting questions there. So tell me, what do you think
I would
of
love
Nico?
for somebody to clip this. I would love for somebody to clip this. Niko
Please.
Bellic is an ex-socialist disappointed by the disbandment of Yugoslavia and its inherent dive into fascist degeneracy, in which he went to a war thinking that he's fighting for socialist ideas, but he was used by his Serbian government at that time to commit atrocities. And when his complete worldview and complete understanding of honor and ideology was destroyed, he was like, fuck this, I'm getting on a ship and I'm going to my cousin over in New York so I can buy some fucking sneakers. And that is, Niko Bellic is literally the metaphor for Southeastern Slavs being disappointed not by the Yugoslav ideas, but by what is represented as Yugoslav ideas, who ended up willingly licking the boot without knowing that they're licking the boot. But okay, now again I get into a bit of a philosophical thing. I like Niko Bellic, very good character, written obviously with the support of people who understand Eastern Europe. I like his story. I like his very tragic, experience and very kind of realistic Eastern European migrant experience in the US. I have
Mm.
many migrant friends, even family members, that, of course, I mean, they're not the Kubelis, they're not shooting bazookas in Manhattan and flying choppers over the fucking skyline, dropping bombs down on enemy NPCs. But people, even during Yugoslavia in its prime, and I think this is the case also in the Soviet Union and also in Cuba, were believed in a lot of the propaganda that was shown to them about just how good it is in the US.
Mm.
And then they just went to the US and they were like, yo, yeah, I'm just another type of guy is fucking me here. Like I'm
Yeah.
still fucked, just another type, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Parenti talks a lot about this in the former socialist states, where it became very people got once the basics were covered, your healthcare, your education, you've got food, you've got housing, you've got everything that you need to live. People took that stuff for granted very, very quickly in the former socialist
Very
states.
quickly.
Very quickly. And
Really
this
did.
this is in Black Shirts and Reds, when he talks about the fall of socialism and the fall of the Eastern Bloc of the USSR and so on and so forth. They got so they started to think, okay, well, we've got these basics covered now. What about commodities? What about consumer products? What about buying shit? What about buying shit? Like moving beyond that level. And unfortunately, people realized then afterwards, once these societies moved towards the capitalist model, that those things that they took for granted were very fucking serious. And it's very much a case of absence makes the heart grow fonder. When you don't have it, you realize how fucking good you had it beforehand. But when you have it, when you have those basics covered, it's not quite as shiny as the fucking Ferraris that you're seeing flaunted about in Monaco and shit like that, and Los Angeles and all these places.
You never
But
get to fucking drive. That's the insane thing with this. You never get to fucking drive.
yeah,
So yeah, it's insane.
That's actually that reminds me of something I read about the economy of Yugoslavia later on. Wasn't there was something in the 80s, in the 1980s, where you could only drive every other day or something like that? Was it like it was every second day or something like that? You could. In the 1980s, there austerity was imposed due to like the IMF and stuff like that. Let me just see. I'll pull it up here. Yeah, okay, so this is the introduction of fuel limitations, 40 litres per can per month, limitation of car usage to every other day based on the last digit of the license plate. Now, this is during the 1980s. Severe limitations on imports of goods and
There was a
paying.
few shortage
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's yeah. But Yugoslavia was back on the topic of like consumer goods.
Mm,
Yugoslavia did a much better job than the Soviet Union when it came to, getting
fancy shit.
people these little things and sometimes even luxury goods. And
Mm,
I'm not saying that this is necessary for socialism, but I am right now going to go out on a limb and say it is necessary for transitionary periods, especially the first stage of communism, socialism,
yeah, yeah.
from the perspective of market. Literally, it's useful for propaganda purposes in combating the West as being perceived as this sort of much better place. Because if I know it's dumb to have 100 different brands of jeans, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you literally miss what you don't have, if you only have one type of jeans or you don't even have jeans, and you see the American who has a few types of jeans, even though he can only afford one, but you see the ads, you tell yourself, holy shit, the American's living a much better life than I am.
Mm,
So having access to typical consumer goods is important. Yes, sure, mass industrialization and having, you know, but materials that are necessary for bettering the average life of your citizen is exceptionally important, but also the choice uh, what you get to consume on a daily basis is important as well.
yeah.
Not from a material perspective, not from a dialectical perspective. It's absolutely dumb. Just from, I don't know, the human need to self-express through consumption, which will be eradicated at one point, but which at this moment is extremely present. So we might as well use it to our advantage instead of denying it as an absolute fact in the current material and market-based systems.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. What I will say is that I think a lot of this is to do with the fact that in former Yugoslavia, they were allowed access to all kinds of like Western media. At least that's my understanding of it. They were allowed access to all kinds of Western media. It's not like, for example, with modern China where you can't access your Facebooks or your Googles or whatever like that. They're not just sort of cut off from this Western world where they're constantly being exposed to advertising and all these sorts of things. I mean, advertising fucking works. Do you know? I mean, it's a sad reality. Advertisers fucking know this. They know that the first probably 7 times that you watch an advertisement, you're gonna think, "Ah, that's stupid. I'm not gonna fucking fall for that." Other people, they'll fall for it, but not me. I'm smart. But then maybe the eighth, ninth, 10th time, it'll sort of sink in, and maybe you fucking drop into that McDonald's. Maybe you get those chips, that fucking Happy Meal, those McNuggets, whatever the fuck, that McBurger or whatever the fuck it is. And they know that's how it works. Maybe in other socialist countries they wouldn't be as exposed to those sorts of things quite as much as they would have been in former Yugoslavia. But due to Yugoslavia being that sort of neutral position, quote unquote neutral position between East and West, people were exposed to that kind of thing, and it's understandable that people might come to the conclusion that fuck, maybe I do want all of the luxury goods that our friends over in France and West Germany and Britain and all these places might desire.
Socialism is not poverty.
Yeah.
Socialism is not poverty.
Hey, you fucking
It's not.
dangest. You fucking dangest right there, Dungus.
Fuck yourself.
Yugopnik, Dengus confirmed.
No,
Motherfucker just quoted Deng Xiaoping.
I know.
Snap that, clip
If you
that out
quote
in the
somebody,
video.
doesn't mean you agree with them. If you quote somebody, doesn't mean you agree with them.
You and
You
Hakim,
can agree with one out of the
listen
things.
to me. Listen to me. Stop fucking talking. I am gonna get every fucking left-wing YouTuber on this stream, and I'm gonna fucking turn each single one of them into a dangus, and I'm gonna fucking expose them. I'm gonna get a little fucking dangus gang, and I'm gonna fucking make a little video compilation of all of the Dengus shit. I'm gonna have Hakeem talking about what's going on in modern China and how he actually read Deng and he was like, oh shit, this stuff's actually pretty fucking good. It's not just the fucking boogeyman that I've been fed by Maoists. It's actually pretty good shit and makes sense in the context of that particular moment in history.
I didn't say that.
I'm gonna get
putting things in my mouth.
I'm gonna get fucking Philosophy Tube. I'm gonna get fucking ContraPoints. I'm gonna get fucking who else the biggies? H Bomber guy. I am gonna get who else?
Peter Coffin.
I'm gonna get Peter Coffin.
Immediately.
I'm gonna get fucking Jason Unruhe. I'm gonna get the Maoists. I'm gonna get fucking everyone. Fucking everyone.
I stand Deng. I stand Deng. Oh Lord.
Fuck me. I'm taking the piss. Alright, yeah, fuck. So
you're fine. You're fine. It's
so
funny.
socialism is it's not poverty, right? A great man once said.
Go fuck yourself. But seriously, no, it's not. Understanding the fact that, for example, a state like Cuba, which is surrounded by all sides, which has so many trade embargoes on it, and that's why people there drive like 50-year-old cars. That's perfectly understandable. But if you have the opportunity and the material opportunity to supply your people with a relative material stability in the transitional period, again, I keep talking about the transitional period because it's extremely important, because after the transitional period, people are not supposed to be giving as much of a fuck about, sort of market-based perception of themselves through the goods that they possess. But during the transitional period, it is important. I mean, motherfuckers are still gonna look at. I actually like the guy, the Hakim Twitch guy.
Hakim?
What? Hakim, yeah, he's an okay guy. But like there you go. The motherfucker wears like fucking edgy, very fashionable, expensive clothes and shit, and that makes him very relatable to the young and impressionable, potentially socialist public. If he was all the time sitting there in a fucking, I don't know, sweatpants and non-branded T-shirt, he would not be perceived as cool, because what is perceived as cool is based on the material reality in which we live in, and what is perceived as something you want to follow and something that you want to somebody you want to listen to is somebody who is perceived as relatively successful in the material reality of capitalism. So instead of so while we do want to abolish this state of things, it does not mean that we cannot use this current state against the current both mode of production, but also current view of what is defined as a successful or unsuccessful person, a cool and uncool person, an edgy or a boring piece of shit, an alcoholic and non-alcoholic, because I think the two of us are pretty much unifying all the alcoholics in the world towards luring them towards socialism. I guess that's
We
our
have
whole fucking show.
we have a problem.
But yeah. But you get my point. Like,
Yeah. No, I get
what
you.
is the, what's the idea of saying, "Oh man, we fuck," having more types of sneakers than 3 types of sneakers? What's the socialist?
17 fucking toothbrushes. Yeah. What the fuck's the point?
The state wants to take a fucking toothbrush. But yeah. No, I don't. I kind of don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, you get my fucking point. My point is, do not underestimate the power of everyday consumable goods. As a guy
Yeah.
who worked in marketing, trust people really care about this shit.
Yeah, and that actually that leads us pretty fucking well into our final question here. Talking about consumer goods and products and all that sort of thing. I do want to say to people who are in the chat, thank you very much for sticking with us, just for sticking with me
Yes.
through my fucking drunken rambling. Yugopnik's held it together a bit better than I have. But yeah, thank you very much for sticking with us. After this question, we're going to be taking a couple of Q&A questions. So get your questions into the chat now, and make sure to put @Paul Moran at the front of your message, so I know that they're directed towards us. Okay. So without further ado, we'll jump into the final question here. So we've talked a lot about Yugoslavia. Let's talk a little bit about commodities and production, all this sorts of good stuff. So now that capitalism has been reintroduced into
Sounds good. I had planned on talking about this.
Oh yeah. Sorry, you go ahead there. Motherfucker, I think Stalin's ghost just cut you off. Fucking hell, we got to 2 hours, nearly 20 minutes. 2 hours and 20 minutes without Stalin's ghost interfering. Or maybe it's Hosha, motherfucker. Anti-revisionist piece of shit. And now you're cut off completely. Fuck. He's not coming back at all. Comrade Yugopnik, if you can hear me, then jump out of the call and jump back in. All right. Let's see. I'll take a few questions. Hosha finally got here, for fuck's sake, Martin. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. All right. I'm just gonna open up the call again with Yugopnik. I'll just end the call and start a new call with them. It'll be grand. I'll take a few questions while we're going here. Polila, what does Yugopnik think of Yugoslavia's relation with Mexico? Come on, he's not here. Stalin fucking took him down. Alright, give us a sec. I'll start up a new chat and we'll make this happen. So let's crack with you. Is all good?
Well, something happened.
Hey, Melina. Oh shit! I shouldn't have said that. Should I have said that?
No, you're fine. Wait, give me a second. Something's.
I heard you for a second, and he's gone again. Would you fucking believe that? Or Yugopnik's opinion on the underground move from 1995. All right, now here's questions for me, and this is shit that I can answer right now.
The connection. I don't know what it is. I apologize to the viewers. Something pushed me out. Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're back. Or you're actually back now. This is great. Yeah. You're back, and you've got your fucking picture back, and fantastic, great stuff. I do want to answer a question before we jump any further. Okay, so Chicken Spawn asked a very, very important question of me, not of you. Everyone else was asking you questions because you're very popular and you're cool and shit like that. But they asked me a question, and they said, "How many languages do you speak?" And so I barely speak English. I know about 10 sentences in Irish. I know about 20 sentences in Portuguese, maybe about 5 sentences in French. So you can add those up. That's probably like what, 1-2 languages. I don't speak very many languages. I wish I could. I want to learn. What's the name of that fucking international language that they have? There was an international language developed. They speak it in fucking Captain Fantastic and all those films. Do you know the name of the Yugopnik? What's the...
I had no idea, no idea. I know about some sort of attempted bridging the gap between Slavic languages and creating sort of a pan-Slavic language, but
Yeah.
a language that bridges all languages, that sounds very difficult. That sounds
Oh,
impossible.
it's a specifically manufactured language. It incorporates a lot of the sort of Romance languages, and it brings them all together. And it's meant to be easy to learn. Like, it's meant to take only about 1/10 of the time that it takes to learn all of these other languages. And the name of it's
Oh, I love
eludes
that
me.
idea.
I know, yeah, it's really, really cool. Do you know, like, rather than spending fucking, years and years learning a language, you can spend like maybe 1 year and then you're fairly fluent in it. I forget the name of it right now. It's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, it'll come to me now whenever you're talking, and then I'll just interrupt you when you're talking about something completely random, and I'll just be like fucking Swahili or some shit like that, and then
Swahili. Yeah, no
it's not
worries.
Swahili.
Yeah.
Esperanto, motherfuckers in the chat. Esperanto, legends, fucking legends. Fair play to you. And someone even says, "Read the chat, silly, you stupid master." Yeah, absolutely. Esperanto, that's the fucking one. Jesus,
I remember now.
this is what happens when you fucking stream when you're pished when you're pished. It's cool crack though. I have to
But
say.
it's really fun. It's fun. It's a great fucking thing to do.
It
I
is.
think we could potentially make a whole thing out of this.
I
I'm
think
not
so.
joking.
At least
I
once a month. At least fucking once a
Yeah,
month. Jump on, talk shite, get drunk, have the crack.
nothing to lose except you can say horrible things. But other than that,
We will.
yeah,
We can and will say fucking stupid ass things, and people will take us out of
Uh,
context. People are
yeah.
fucking.
But our excuse is always going to be we're drunk.
We're fucked. We're fucked.
Yeah, that's it.
But
Uh,
us, we're small. We have tiny little. Who watches our stuff? We've got a few mates. We've got a few people we know. We don't have like massive
exactly.
followings. Who fucking cares? If we had like proper followings, if we had fucking a few 100,000 subscribers each of us, then we'd be in trouble. Then we'd be fucked.
I'd still do it. I'd still fucking do it. The world
Will.
needs more motherfuckers like
It's not would.
Will.
It's will.
Oh. The world needs more motherfuckers that talk straight, man. Talk direct.
Yeah, you fucking need to, especially in these fucking left-wing spaces, because so many people are just afraid to fucking say exactly what they feel because they're afraid of alienating certain people from their audience. I feel it's so fucking patronizing when certain left-wing YouTubers or left-wing intellectuals or left-wing public figures won't say exactly what they mean. They don't
Exactly.
want to say I'm a fucking Marxist-Leninist. They don't want to say I'm an anarchist. They don't want to say I'm a Maoist. So they fucking dress it up in all this weird fucking language and they'll dance around the topic and maybe they'll try and figure out the line that exists for the audience, right? They'll find that line and they'll sort of tiptoe up to that line and they'll stop. They won't fucking go further. And so maybe they'll criticize capitalism and hear some shit about capitalism. Capitalism's crap, but they won't fucking tell you what the fuck do we do? How do we get past that? How do we get past this shit that we find ourselves in now? What's the strategy for actually moving forward? And there are great strategies. There are fucking great strategies to move forward. There are strategies, whatever fucking ideology you have, there are strategies. Whether that's a Marxist-Leninist strategy, whether that's a Maoist strategy, whether that's an anarchist strategy, whatever the fuck it is. I want fucking people to actually be honest and say what they mean. And I'll say that. Do you know why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because we're often our own worst critics. And when I started this channel, I had that kind of vague kind of position as well. There are a few leftist YouTubers who just don't really want to say their own ideology, what they actually believe, and so they'll dance around the subject. Do you know what I mean? And I
Exactly. Yeah.
And I would never
Go
actually,
on.
I would never say, what I actually want is a dictatorship of the proletariat that moves towards communism. That eliminates the bourgeoisie as a class and proletarianizes them and gives them fucking jobs in the factory like the rest of us, or jobs in the fucking deli, or jobs in fucking McDonald's, or whatever the fuck it is. Do you know what I mean? Because there are good strategies, and I wish people wouldn't fucking talk down to us. They wouldn't fucking talk down to us all the fucking time and assume that people aren't ready for this kind of stuff, because this This is a form of opportunism. This is right
It is.
opportunism. It's right wing opportunism where you assume that the viewer is not ready to hear, for example, the word communism. You assume that people aren't ready for the word
Oh God, I
socialism.
couldn't agree more.
You know what I
I
mean?
couldn't agree more.
This is it.
Absolutely. You, literally, you cannot make money out of talking about revolution if a
Yeah.
revolution actually happens.
Yeah.
Opportunism 101. You want to make money about talking about something that you deep down inside do not want to happen, because then you're left without a job.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
lot of these, not all of them, absolutely
Oh
not all
yeah,
of them.
no, there's a
Some of
lot of
them,
great ones.
yeah, but most of these incredibly high earning left wing individuals uh, don't actually want they preach to come about, because it would leave them without their bread.
That's right. Yeah.
And this sort of opportunism leads them to actively and strongly criticizing people who actually take a stance. Because
Yeah.
those people who take a stance, they see as opposition, because they understand that these motherfuckers are of the same ideology, but also not on the same boat as you.
Mm.
Because they understand that even though they are Jesus, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, they are
Okay.
on the same boat
That's
as you.
fine.
So they openly subscribe to a similar ideology as yourselves, as yours. But in the long run, they know that by fully supporting this sort of way of thought, uh, they're not doing it for themselves, but they're doing it for the actual goals that they subscribe to,
Mm.
while in contrast to them who are doing it only out of opportunistic short-term uh, profit motives.
Yeah.
So it's literally the market turning activism. Now I got my train of thought back. So the market likes, just like with everything in life, from consumption down to interpersonal relationships, romance, sexuality, even nowadays to activism. It commodifies activism, and it tells you, uh, yo, for example, watch these 10 YouTube videos today about Marxism, for example, and that should fill your hunger for change, and just stick to watching these videos or reading that book, and don't actually do anything in real life. It turned revolutionary mentality into a good that is to be consumed, and not something that is to be acted on.
Mm. Che Guevara
And if
t-shirt.
you leave, exactly, and not even that, like now we're talking about YouTubers, right?
Yep.
Um, Even though YouTube as a platform can be used to radicalize a whole lot of people, it can also be used to keep them in check, to
Yep.
make you feel like the fact that you're watching my drunk Slavic ass and your drunk Irish ass
Yep.
talking right now, that you did your part for today.
That's a revolutionary
You
act,
because
isn't it?
Yeah,
Watching
yeah,
ContraPoints
because
philosophy show.
yeah, you because you did more than Mike down the fucking hallway, who didn't even do this. So you as a consumer outconsumed him, and that makes you feel as a better Marxist,
Yep.
or as a Marxist at all.
Yep.
It's the commodification of activism. It's the commodification of even anti-commodity ideologies. It's incredible. I am genuinely impressed by the market. I studied it, and I still do. And you can fight Sauron, but be impressed by how Sauron raised all the fucking Urukai from the ground, and all the orcs, and fought the other motherfuckers. You don't have to like them. And I am impressed with how the market manages to quite literally uh, not tell us, fuck off, but tell us, oh, you're doing a lot. You're doing so much, while you're not actually doing jack fucking shit.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's genuinely incredible. And then it's gonna sell your Che Guevara T-shirt, and then it's gonna make a merch shop for ContraPoints, and it's gonna whatever. I mean,
Oh fucking hell! You're so fucking on the ball, spot on. I don't know what the fuck the internationally accepted version has, but in Ireland we say on the ball. It means you're very fucking right. I totally agree with you.
where I'm from, we would say you fucked it right.
You
Like
fucked it
when you
right.
say, yeah, you fucked it right.
Don't fucking meme that. Don't fucking whoever's watching this. Don't fucking meme that part. It sounds fucking weird. It sounds. You can gift that shit and it'll sound fucking weird. So don't fucking do it. All right. Okay, this was class. This is really good. There's been a question in the chat, and it's a fairly fucking random question, but I think it's been asked about 2003 times. So I'm going to find it and I'm going to ask it because some random Swede, that's the name, that's the username, wants to know what your favorite Zizek meme or quote is. So what's your favorite Zizek meme or quote?
My favorite Zizek meme is some guy on YouTube has a channel in which they have an AI that copies the voice of the person, of any person, and then of all things that they can quote is they quote that that very old school, very stale thing when some guy on Xbox Live or somewhere says, "Yo, motherfucker, I'm actually an ex Navy SEALs. You should be afraid. I'm gonna come to your house and I'm gonna fuck you up." I don't. Paul, do you know that one?
No, I want to
But
say
that,
yes just to be agreeable, but no, I don't. But let's say yes just to be friendly and fucking yeah,
so,
good
so
one. Yeah, I know
no,
what you're talking about.
no, but it's not about it being a good one. But like it's
No,
there's
I don't know. I don't know.
the usual thing when you play a fucking video game and somebody lies to you about how he was Obama's bodyguard and he still has connections in the CIA and he knows exactly where you live and you should be afraid because tomorrow he's gonna come and beat the shit out of you. So they made this algorithm in which Zizek, I'm gonna send it to you later. I'm gonna put it in chat. Uh,
Yes.
in which Zizek reads this out, and it's literally like, "Yo, you fucking little bitch! I'm going to fucking find you, and I'm going to fuck your mother up the pussy," and it's just so insane.
Holy
I
shit.
worked for the. I will let you know that I worked for the Navy SEALs for 7 years. I am trained in fucking Mortal Kombat, and I will drive my Humvee tank right up of your fucking alley, and you will piss yourself. You don't know who you're fucking with, you little cunt. And that's the thing. And it's the funniest fucking thing
You did the lisp.
ever. And he did the fucking lisp. The AI does the lisp.
Holy
Um,
fuck. That's amazing.
but yeah, that's my favorite. And my favorite Zizek quote is when he talks about the difference between Middle Europe and Western Europe, and he's sitting on the bridge between Middle Europe and Eastern Europe, and the motherfucker says, this bridge divides Middle Europa with Western Europa, and here in Middle Europa, women get beat, they get raped, and they like it. And over there in Western Europa, women get beat and they get raped and they don't like it. So that is a perfect example of how developing countries and developed countries are pretty much the same shithole. But
Yeah, I love that. I love that
from
video as
another
well.
others, it's not. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a fucking great little clip there that he has. I don't know if it was yourself who shared it. Did you share that recently? Did you?
Relatively, yes. I know this clip from since like 10 years ago, and it
Yeah.
always warmed my soul. I was like, "Fuck, I'm gonna share it."
Fuck, it's
Oh,
too accurate. Too fucking accurate. Oh, brilliant. Jesus, this is fucking great crack.
I found the clip. I found the clip. I'm gonna clip it in the fucking chat way, just
Get,
before I forget.
can you send that to me via Google Hangouts that we're using now, and then I can put it in the chat because links don't
Yes, there
work.
you go.
Okay, let me see here. I'll pull
There you go.
this.
You can put it in the chat.
Okay, we'll pop this in the chat now. Okay, now we'll take another question and then we'll jump on to the final question about capitalism and competition and all that sorts of thing, and then we'll take a few more questions after that from the audience. Okay, so Groucho Marxists asks, they're interested in Yugopnik's take on Dugin. I think it's Alexander's Dugin, and keeping Natspols or National Bolsheviks out of leftist spaces. So, what are your thoughts on National Bolsheviks?
Um, there's no negotiation with people who concentrate on ideals of anti-Semitism or do not believe in the core tenets of internationalism. If socialism is not internationalist and if it does not believe that all men, women, non-binary, you get my fucking point, but all people
Okay, but
are
yeah,
created equal and should be equal, and that all hierarchies, including ethnic hierarchies or sexual hierarchies or gender hierarchies, need
yeah,
to be, at the end goal. This bandit is not a comrade, but a quite literal piece of shit. Dugin is
agree.
a relatively religious conspiracy theorist, clero-fascist. I am extremely used to seeing people like him. I don't know why he's in the mainstream. Back during the fall of Yugoslavia, these sorts of motherfuckers popped up all over the place. And yes, some of them are gonna come at you and tell you, "Oh, but I am against the imperialists or I am against NATO." That should make me good, but no, they are not the same as a certain actual anti-imperialist forces. These guys are 100% equating you, socialist comrade, with NATO. They would shoot the socialist and the NATO soldier as quickly as the other. So one thing is, critical support for
Mm.
potential allies. It's another thing, critical support for literal quasi-fascists. So, which actually, the only thing worse than a fascist is a quasi-fascist. I mean, at least do your thing fully, so I know what the fuck you are. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah, that's that. I suppose that brings up the issue of Caleb Maupin and people who would sort of associate with Dugan and so on and so forth. So even if you have like a problem with Dugan, Alexander Dugan, and all these sorts of ideas, people who associate with them. Do you know? I'm reminded of when Hakim came on the stream, and also when he did his own Q&A. We asked Hakim about what his opinion was on um, what's the name? Saddam Hussein, and he didn't just say he's bad. He didn't just take this kind of idealist one line perspective. He said he's about 70% bad and about 30% good. So, he did some good things. Most of what he did was bad. And I think that's a really useful way of looking at people. We don't want to take this we want to be dialectical. We want to look at the pros and the cons and the contradictions, and we want to look at the thesis and the antithesis and the synthesis and all these sorts of things. What's good within these ideas, these movements, these people, and so on and so forth. So that presents problems when we talk with people who are adjacent to fascists, who may be fascists, who may be fascist adjacent, or who may be adjacent to people who are adjacent to fascists, and so on and so forth. So, I'm not going to make I'm definitely not going to make any sort of I'm not going to give a take here on whether or not I think that Caleb Maupin is good or bad or anything like that. But I think moving forward, that probably is a good perspective to take. Maybe they're 20% bad, maybe 30% bad, maybe 50% bad, maybe 60% bad. And you do need to just say fuck this person. I'm definitely. I haven't studied Dugan very much. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't studied Dugan, Alexander Dugan. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. But from
Don't
what
waste your time, trust me. But
from,
yeah, sorry.
from what I do know, it's probably not worth reading, and I'm probably not going to waste my time having a look into it. You know what I mean? And maybe it's not waste time. I don't know. If someone wants to enlighten me, then fine. If there are some good ideas there that aren't fucking fascist, then I'm open to hearing them. But no, absolutely not. I think anyone who does sort of approximate this national Bolshevik or Nazbol idea, no, there's no space for that kind of stuff in our movements. That being said, that being said, we need to be clear on what that fucking word means. Because I am seeing this thrown around very fucking liberally. I'm seeing, I've been called a fucking Nazi. I've been fucking called, because I support left-wing nationalism and I support national liberation movements.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
Are you even left wing if you've never been called an asshole?
exactly. So we need to be very fucking clear. Whenever someone uses this term, and anytime someone uses this term, Nazi, just ask them what the fuck do they mean. Anytime, and I'm not jumping to defense of anybody here now, but in the particular case of Caleb Maupin, okay, anytime I've heard someone say Caleb's a Natspo, they'll say to me two things. I'll ask them, what do you mean by Natspo? And they'll say Natspo. They'll say, first of all, he was at an anti-imperialist conference with this Dugan fellow, okay, which appeared to have some sort of Natspo symbology behind him, which is definitely questionable, and I definitely have some issues. Okay, I would have problems with that, and I would ask questions about that, and especially the fact that he is still posting videos about this, and it seems to be sort of defending that conference and so on and so forth. So he's kind of reaching across the aisle there in some senses, but I don't want to get into that too much. But that's the first thing that people will tell me when somebody calls Caleb Maupin a Natspo, okay? And I have to say it's not a strong argument, because that's guilty.
It's not. No, it's not.
It's not. That's
by association.
Guilty by association. That's not a strong argument for someone actually being Natspo, okay? The next thing that people will tell me is that
I'm never going to defend Caleb, but he's definitely not a fucking asshole. Like, what the fuck? He's not an asshole. It's like, I'm not a particular fan of the guy, even though I was back in the day, but he's definitely not an asshole. What the fuck? He's not an... So he was in a room with a guy who actually, Dugan is not full Nazbol either.
Yeah.
He's this sort of weird Orthodox Christianity, spirituality mixed with... Bolshevism squared with Russian nationalism, which is also a meme by itself. But it's because especially American Twitter fiends love fighting things by just putting a label on it.
That's right. Cancel this person because of one thing or so on and so forth.
Like, look at their opinion, say this sucks, this doesn't suck, this sucks, I dislike this person because majority of his shit sucks. Okay, don't be like, this man, he went to this conference, therefore he bad man. What the
yeah, well, this is it exactly, and that's the one sort of pillar that they always tell me when I ask them, what do you mean when you say he's an asshole? And the second thing that they tell me is that he had Joti Brar on his stream at one stage, and Joti Brar...
Who the fuck is that? I have no idea who that is.
Joti Brar is a prominent communist from the CPGB-ML in the United Kingdom. Now, this party, the CPGB-ML, are known for taking a very aggressive position towards identity politics and intersectionality and all these sorts of things. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. To be honest with you, they're fairly strong on women's rights. They're fairly strong on against religious discrimination. They're fairly strong. They support Irish republicanism, so they support these sorts of proletarian identity-based liberation movements. But they come out strongly against the term IDPO, and unfortunately, when they use the term IDPO, it seems to be almost exclusively referring to LGBTQ plus issues. Okay, so they have some problems with LGBTQ plus issues, and so this lady Joti Brar came on Caleb's stream at one stage, And she said that she had all of these problems with what she termed, quote, transgender ideology. And what she said was that this is pure ideal. Now, from what I remember, this is pure idealism. I think, therefore I am. And so, so it's a very, very transphobic perspective. It doesn't pay attention to the science that's out there at the moment, and it seems to be stuck in kind of almost a 1960s, 1970s understanding of the human brain and all of these issues. And so, of course, there are strong materialist arguments for supporting transgender
Yeah,
liberation.
being trans is materially extremely stable. I
Absolutely.
don't know what
And
I don't know about this, but that sounds super. Being trans, being idealist is what the
it's no, it's
that
ridiculous.
stupid as shit. Jesus Christ, that
No, I
I
agree. I
don't think that
agree.
needs addressing.
It's
That's
it's
idiotic.
stupid.
Yeah.
It's fucking stupid. And I agree. That's a really fucking bad take on behalf of Jyoti Barr. And Caleb, when this interview was happening, he was just sort of standing there. He doesn't say anything. And
He didn't
after
even fucking listen to that
no,
shit. Yeah. So
he didn't say anything. But then after the conversation happened, he just said, "Oh, you'd be kicked out of certain left wing spaces for addressing this issue. You'd be kicked out of them for talking about for addressing that perspective," and that was it. He didn't express agreement or disagreement with the issue. Um, and then unfortunately, from that, the fact that he didn't disagree and that he didn't call her out there and then, he seems to be demonized for this, which is unfortunate because there are videos of like Caleb and pictures of Caleb at like trans rights rallies and protests and all of these sorts of things. Excuse me. So again, that being used as a justification that Caleb is a national Bolshevik, it doesn't really stand up to any scrutiny. I mean, first of all, that's not fucking what national Bolshevism is. Denying trans identity is not. Obviously, in all Nazis would take that shitty position, but that's
very
not.
bad that he didn't. Very bad. I mean, not very bad,
Yeah,
but kind of bad that
he
he
should
didn't
have
immediately react
said.
and it was like, "What the fuck are you
He
talking
should have
about?"
said, "Shut the
But
fuck up." But
yeah,
ultimately, but that's
but
not. Do you know what I mean? That's
that
not.
doesn't make you a Nazpol. Like
It
it
makes
doesn't.
you. It means you're a person who has a shitty take on LGBTQ plus issues. Do you know that's really what it
Yeah.
means, and unfortunately that seems to be the issue. I see a lot of people being called Natsbol or National Bolshevik for having shitty takes on LGBTQ plus issues, which is a weird which is just fucking weird. Do you know what I mean? It has that's nothing to do with like the economic or the social ideology of what
Exactly.
national Bolshevism
Yeah,
is. It's a really
exactly.
bad thing, and I don't want to make it
Yeah.
sound like I'm exonerating Caleb
No, no,
because
you're not. You're not. I don't
he
think
sh-
anybody can
he should have
perceive
called
it
her
in
out.
that way.
He should have
Yeah.
called her out and said that's incorrect. But that doesn't make him a national
An
Bolshevik.
asshole, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
This whole label thing, it implies one very problematic thing that I guess a lot of these relatively spoiled middle to working class, even though the middle class doesn't exist, but you get my
yeah,
point.
I know what you mean.
Well,
Yeah.
you
Labor aristocracy, really. Yeah.
yeah, US, Canadian,
First
or
Royal, I suppose.
UK, French, whatever, German, are going to be very disappointed with the fact that if a revolution does happen and if there is an actual mass movement of socialists, of leftists, even anarcho-syndicalists, I'm open to a lot of
Mm.
things.
Oh yeah, they have a lot
Uh,
of good points. Yeah,
a lot of these motherfuckers that are right next to you on the front or in the party or in the governing body, a lot of them are not gonna know jack shit about 80% of identity sort of issues, and they're going to need to be educated, etc., etc. That's all great, but it's a fact that we have concentrated this Twitter, in which we kind of think that this clique on Twitter knows a lot about pretty much everything,
Mm,
and in order to join the clique, you need to know a lot about all of these intersectional topics, which I
mm,
agree. You need to know a lot about all these intersectional topics. But guys, you will be very disappointed if you want to lead an actual labor-based, working class-based movement that wants to radically change society, because you really will have to cooperate with a lot of people who are not bigoted. I'm not saying are bigoted, but who
mm.
genuinely don't know jack shit about all this stuff.
Of course,
They
yeah.
don't know shit about trans rights. They don't know shit about, okay, for example, about Slavic culture and about Eastern European mentality and about our ex problems and shit like this. Uh,
It's a really
and
big
it is not,
point. It's
yeah,
and
and it is not
you know,
something we need to expect out of everybody.
yeah.
And now somebody's going to say, "Oh, you're not intersectionalist." Fuck yeah, I am intersectionalist. I'm just saying intersectional. Sorry, intersectionalist. What the fuck? Intersectional. But I'm not expecting everybody to know. Now I'm going to criticize, people who want to massively concentrate on class. I'm not going to expect everybody to have read Marx in order to join a socialist movement. Like, what the fuck? I'm not going to expect everybody to know the intricacies of LGBTQ plus issues.
Mm.
Uh, I'm not going to expect everybody, because people have jobs. People work
Of
on
course, yeah,
as
yeah.
doctors, as engineers on a farm. Not everybody has the luxury of understanding every single detail of whatever is the currently fucking interesting political or social or sociological topic of discussion. So
Yeah, you're dead right, comrade, and that's something that you will learn when once you get out and actually start doing real life activism and organize. You try to organize your workplace. You try to become maybe like the shop steward or something like that. You're trying to actually convert your workplace into a unionized workplace and so on and so forth. And you realize that like people don't understand these things. Like left Twitter is here, and people are just not necessarily there. Maybe they understand certain things, and I don't want this to sound in any way condescending. The working class fucking they feel it in their bones, but maybe they don't have the fucking terminology for certain things. Do you know what I mean? Even, I would even have this issue myself when it comes up to certain topics, especially around, like, for example, LGBTQ plus topics. I have to say, every time I have this conversation with a comrade who's fighting for LGBTQ plus liberation, I have to say to them, look, comrade, I don't have the vocabulary for this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really I'm not fully I'm trying to learn what I can, but I'm not fully 100% there yet. So,
exactly, that should be fine. It should be fine for us to say that,
yeah, and it is,
right?
and it is, of course, and like it is, like
It is.
everybody knows that, everybody knows that. But I suppose the thing is, we need to understand that they're like normal working people. They're not spending all their fucking days on Twitter. They're not dealing with these kinds of issues. Especially when we talk to these about these sorts of things, there's even academics are struggling to come to a consensus on many issues, and so you can imagine that the average worker is struggling a bit to sort of figure out exactly what they should or shouldn't say, or what words are appropriate, and so on and so forth. I know myself, fucking hell, we're on the stream, we're saying things like, we're saying, oh, that's stupid, oh, that's dumb, oh, that's, whatever, certain words and stuff like that. And and at a certain point in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, isn't, I was told that's ableism. That's ableism,
It
right?
kind of is, yeah. I talk to also, like, every time I say, for example, I use the word idiotic, and I shouldn't be using the word as much as I do.
Mm.
But again, like, it, I mean, my excuse is this is my second language, but I'm not going to use that excuse.
It's a good excuse,
Uh,
actually. Yeah,
It's trust me. It's now I'm gonna say it. It's an idiotic excuse, because trust me, a lot of people have C2 level fucking English, and whenever they say something that's
yeah.
problematic, they're like, "Oh my God, it's my second language." Me as a person with English as a second language, actually a third, I'm
Fuck.
telling you, 90% of the time, these motherfuckers are lying to you. Like they're just using this. This is
The
as
fucking
an
nerd. Yeah,
excuse.
yeah. That's
But
what
yeah,
you're C2. I was an English teacher, so that means advanced. That doesn't mean advanced. That means proficient. That's the highest level of English language learning. For
oh, thank you. I have a certificate, motherfucker. So
seriously,
yeah,
did you
yeah.
do like what did you do like IELTS or the Cambridge exams or something? Jesus
The,
fucking
the
Christ, I'm
the
such a nerd.
Cambridge the Cambridge exams. Yeah, I did the Cambridge.
Did you do like CAE and
I
CPE and all that? Did you?
CAE.
Fuck!
CAE.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ! I'm such a nerd. Sorry, lads. Sorry.
I am. No, fucking nerd, motherfucker! I'm gonna fucking kill you. No, no, no. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Not that I took some courses and teacher was like we should some of you guys maybe should take this test. There was a government subsidy for certain students to take it.
Uh,
First time I didn't get I didn't get a passing
it was
grade,
hard to.
and after, yeah, fucking it's insane.
Fucking hate that exam.
And the second time it was I kind of over concentrated on doing it well, and I kind of did it okay, did it well. But I always had issues with specifically with past perfect. My brain kind of because
It's a
in
weird
my
tense. Yeah.
language, yeah, in my language, a tense doesn't exist at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So my brain to wrap around it was messy.
How do you explain
Uh,
the past perfect or the present perfect? You know, the past perfect. What is that like? Something that happened before the past.
for something that
Yeah.
happened in the
I
past.
I had been
Yeah.
eating before the fucking bus hit me or something like that. It's like it's the past before the past. Wait, what? But then even the present perfect's fucking weird. It's like I have been living here for 3 years. Wait, are you still living here or have you stopped
Yeah,
living
but
here?
it's a long,
It's a mess.
something that has been happening for a while.
Yeah, fuck
Yeah.
English. Fuck English. Jesus Christ. Learn Irish. Learn Irish, you cunts. Sorry.
Oh,
I shouldn't.
I would love to. I would love to. I know a decent amount of German. I
Yes.
understand Russian, but I can't talk shit in Russian. I have, I speak Serbo-Croatian,
Class.
and Bulgarian. Yeah, I'm good. Like probably a B2 C1 Bulgarian. Professional, at least
Great.
for work, I can speak it. So yeah, these are my little. But yeah, I want to learn how to properly write Russian because learning how to write Russian when you're a South Slavic guy is absolutely insane. These guys have like symbols for how intensively you should pronounce a certain letter. It's pretty fucking crazy. I don't know. Russian is insane.
Yeah. Maybe Chinese as well. Doesn't that even, when you're reading the language, it does fucking, it tells you how you should speak these words. It's not so much just, you read the word the. It actually, maybe I'm talking shy. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure with the language Chinese, you pronounce words and you say sentences in a particular way. It's based on the intonation. If you say if you speak like this, it means a certain thing. Whereas if you speak like this, it means a different kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah,
intonation based there, which is kind of
extremely interesting.
it's really
Yeah,
fucking
very
weird.
interesting.
It's a weird fucking one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't be saying it's weird. I love China, and of course we've given full support to Deng Xiaoping,
No, you were like, English is Chinese is weird, and then in order to justify it, you have to fully support
I have
China.
to. I have to. Because I feel bad. I'm like, oh shit, I love you, China. Don't worry about it. Keep sending me those Patreon books, as they say, George Soros dollars from Xi Jinping.
That moment where George Soros supports China, oh, epic bro moment.
Bruh. Someone in the chat said we should have a smoke up stream. Isn't that funny? Someone should have we should smoke joints. We should smoke weed and do a stream. That's what someone said. All right, that was a good while ago. That's a good while ago now in the stream, but that's something.
I'll stick to my vodka, but
Yeah.
God bless. If you want to smoke up, smoke up.
Yeah, people always think because I'm a hairy bastard. They think I must be a stoner, fucking hippie piece of shit. I'll have you know, I do not smoke weed. Thank you very much. I haven't smoked
I
weed.
say no to the devil grass. Thank you very much, sir.
I
I am
haven't
not a
smoked
dirty
weed.
commie.
I haven't smoked weed in at least 24 hours. I know I'm only messing. Hey, when I was younger, of course, when you're
There was
when you're a kid.
there was a thing where somebody wrote like I did a lot of cocaine with some leftist guy,
You
and
did?
my no, not me, not me,
Someone
no,
else, someone
somebody
else.
posted it,
Okay.
and I got so many likes when I commented, "Jesus, you fucking bourgeois pig, do amphetamines. That's a proletarian drug." Because it's a very cheap fucking thing. In Bulgaria, they used like the reactionaries that pretended to be the Communist Party. They had like government-run pharmaceutical companies, in which during the day they would make legal drugs, but during the
Oh
night
fuck.
they would make amphetamines that they would sell in the West in actual factories. So it was really high quality amphetamines because they were made in labs that are used to make, I don't know, antibiotics.
It's like
So
Adderall
there
or
was,
some shit.
yeah, and there's like this whole thing. I don't know if you watched Wolf of Wall Street when they
Yeah, I
take
love it.
Quaaludes. So there's no Quaaludes left, right? So if we get Quaaludes, it's like, oh my fucking shit. And there's the same thing with like Bulgarian amphetamines from back in the day. You find that shit, Todor Zhivkov's amphetamines. It's like, holy fucking shit, this shit's made in a fucking lab, like FDA approved amphetamines. No, I don't. Genuinely, I'm not anti-drug, far from that, but I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
do
yeah,
that shit. I'm
yeah,
a
yeah.
proper alcoholic. I stick to my good old see-through liquid that goes and ruins my liver. But that's how I like it, motherfucker.
Yeah. Look, this is it. This is it. Um, something happened to me a
Have you
few.
had a longer stream ever? This is really long, but we're fucking losing our
Fuck,
shit.
Jesus, fuck. We've been streaming for over fucking 3 hours. You know
Dude, we
what's
can make a fucking podcast,
We
man.
can make
I
fucking 10 podcasts. We we've been fucking streaming for over 3 hours, and you know what else? For the entire time, there has been over 100 people watching. So the people don't think this is a big pile of steaming shite. So
hopefully, fuck yeah.
that's something. Well, maybe they do. Maybe There's only 3 dislikes. When I had the Connolly Youth Movement on the stream, we got like in the first 2 seconds before we'd even gone live, we got a load of fucking dislikes. We got fucking a load of fascists came in and just fucking downvoted the shite out of it.
Classic,
It's
classic.
great. I fucking love when they do that because that increases engagement, which means more people on YouTube are gonna see it, even just to like rage, to hate this video, and that means more fucking ad revenue for me. So I might get 1,000 more views because of that shit, which translate directly to 20 cents more for me.
Fuck yeah, rich motherfucker. You fucking shill, opportunist scum.
This piece of shit was fucking like commenting on one of my videos there the other day, and specifically on that Connolly Youth Movement video, and he just said something about I don't know. I think he said the guest had like a posh accent there or something like that. And he just made fun of that, and I was just like, "Class, keep going, fucking keep the comments coming. That increases the engagement, which gets more views to my channel. That means that pushes us up on the YouTube algorithm. This is good for communism. You're helping communism by being this piece of shit. I fucking
Yeah, that
love
moment when the market helps the movement.
it."
No, that quote gets misquoted a lot, but I mean the purpose behind it. Capitalists will sell you the rope with which you will hang them with, but in the long run, that's exactly how it's going to happen.
Yep.
Right now it's disadvantaging us by commodifying proactive anti. Capitalist behavior, right? But
Mm.
in the long run, by commodifying it, it's going to make it so popular that it's going to become mainstream that it's going to eventually, bite it in its own ass. At least, hopefully. At least that's
I
from a
fucking
Marxist perspective what's supposed to
Well,
happen.
it's
But
inevitable from a
we'll
Marxist
see.
perspective. Although, of course, I think Marx may or may not have been a little bit optimistic in how soon that would happen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
little thing called bank loans and marketing and
Fucking hell.
advertising.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the
that
separation
was a big thing.
and
Yeah.
the fucking when they separated the gold standard as well, they created this credit-based
Yeah.
economies. It just fucked up everything. Fucked up the Marxist analysis. So we need to have this whole new understanding of these kinds of issues. Okay, we have a question. We have a question here from Faye. We have Faye here asking a question to us. There's a little bit at the end there which I'm not going to read out. No way. But can you give an overview of South Slavic Communist Party organizations and the possibility of rebuilding socialist movements today? And then she says, I love Deng. That's literally what she says. Don't go look in the chat. She doesn't say anything bad about Deng. She says, I fucking love Deng. Maybe there's some typos there, but that's what she meant. She means I fucking love Deng. And revisionism is class, and Dengism is based.
Yeah,
As the kids say.
edgy,
That's what Faye
edgy
says.
shit. But
That's
yeah.
yeah.
Oh
That's
well,
that's the
God bless.
overview.
God bless. So
Faye's
that kind
cool
of
like
covers
that.
also the last thing we were
Yeah,
going to talk
yeah,
about.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let me just go
Actually, get
through
into the
that.
questions. Cool,
So,
cool.
so what happens when you disband a potential socialist project? You invest a shit ton of money into creating local quote unquote bootlicking cunts, which will, in the long run, believe absolutely every single information you serve to them as gospel when it comes to anti-communist rhetoric. So in ex-Yugoslavia, in pretty much all of the countries, in Serbia, they tell you the Slovenes had it really well, and the Croats, they fucked us Serbs during Yugoslavia. These goddamn commies hated Serbia, which had the largest population, divided it into territories. That's why we lost Kosovo, and the commies are bad, and we never want them back. In Croatia, they will tell you, oh, we are the smartest Germans, we are Catholic superiors, we had to, support underdeveloped Serbian and Macedonian dogs throughout Yugoslavia because the communists made us, and fuck communists because we now would have been living in a Star Trek utopia if it wasn't for it. Slovenes kind of don't say anything because Slovenes are like, oh, Yugoslavia was pretty cool. We got out on time. Slovenes are interesting. I like Slovenes. And I'm not, it's the only like nationality I have nothing of. Bosnians are conflicted. Montenegrins are too busy with their country starting to nationalize fucking religious institutions to care about this, and Macedonians are Macedonians. They're getting cucked by the Greeks to create, and they changed their name into North Macedonia. So they don't really have time to talk about it. But I think Macedonians and Bosnians are the most Yugo-nostalgic out of all of the nations. So the question is, there any what sort of movements are there? There are hardcore ML movements in Serbia, which do not get into parliament, but they are very hardcore and they still keep at it. And I have respect to them for them. One of them is called Skoj, but there are other ones. There is a Trotskyist one called Marx 21, stuff like this. Young people in Serbia and getting more and more left wing, but around 10 to 20% of them that study shit like languages, philosophy, anthropology, topics like this. You get a very decent sort of youth Marxist movement. Other than that, nationalism, but not so left nationalism, but the fucking reactionary nationalism
Yeah,
is
yeah,
is huge. In Croatia, reactionary nationalism is absolutely fucking massive. But again, same like in Serbia, you have young left-wing people, and for the first time, I have to give props to the Croatian brothers and sisters, is that a unity between Green parties and one party which is actually very left-wing. Again, social democratic, but for the current state of things, it is impressive that they got into parliament. So hats off. I think they're much more radical, but they understand they cannot talk about this shit at this current moment if they want to get anywhere even close to it. Reformists, yes, but I'll take what I can have. So in Croatia, there's a party in there. In Slovenia, there are a few parties that are relatively left-wing that are kind of managing to do something. Bosnia, forget about it. That's pretty much a failed state when it comes to any potential radical movement because it's still like a mini 90s civil war continuing only without guns, sometimes also with guns. And as I said, Montenegro and Macedonia are just fucking memes. So it's a very depressing and bleak outlook. Most older people that have experienced Yugoslavia, unless they were very religious or they had family members that fought on the opposite side during World War II, have a positive outlook on the country. So pretty much people who have an objective opinion and perspective towards Yugoslavia have a positive outlook. And not saying that from only my personal experience. There have been many polls done in which they would ask them about their ideology, their parents' ideology, their grandparents' ideology, and their outlook on Yugoslavia. And there's very good correlated data to that leads us to this sort of conclusion. But I have to say it is a very bleak, sad moment, though it always puts a smile on my face when sometimes somebody puts a comment on some of my shit and says, yo, holy shit, I thought I was, I live in a small town, for example, because I'm myself from a small town. And I was yet to meet somebody who even, who, doesn't, who understands at least the most basic tenets of Marxism. I'm glad that there's more people and more people speaking up, and I have a lot of hope in the youngins who are gonna who know how to properly source their sources, and who are at the same time extremely skeptical of reactionary sources. So we'll see. Ex-Yugoslavia has a lot of potential because it already is very anti-imperialist, but it's this sort of neoliberal anti-imperialism in which they're like, oh, we just want to develop our own little weird capitalist shithole. And if we manage to make that twist and keep it anti-imperialist, but also introduce knowledge of the fact that, yo, motherfucker, in order to make something that is for the working class, for the people who actually make the country, and not just for bureaucratic political elites, we gotta take things into our own hands. So if somebody pops up that could potentially make this, like ex-Yugoslav states can still be saved, but I don't see that happening in the short run, very unfortunately. Maybe not even in my lifetime, but fuck it, I'm trying to do my part.
Fuck. Yep. Doing what we can anyway. Doing what we can. Yep. Look.
And fuck it.
In terms of doing what you can, all I can say is obviously we don't want to ask too much information, because it can be revealing, and fascists are gonna fucking reveal your data and dox you and all this sort of shit. But fucking join your local communist party, join your union, and get active. And if your party is following, a shit line, then fucking correct that shit. All right, correct it. If they've gone fucking reformist or some shit, correct it. We need revolution. We need to change things. Let's do revolution. Let's bring back socialism, and let's make it happen, because historical development demands it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So fantastic.
And be adaptive, motherfuckers. Be adaptive. It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah. 100%.
Unfortunately.
To the circumstances. Yeah. To the particular. Material
doesn't mean you're a visionist, for fuck's sakes.
No, of course not. No, look, if you're on the road to communism, that's a good thing. Do you know, that's one of the things that Lenin says as well. People will often shit on state capitalism. They'll say such and such country is state capitalists, as though that is as though that means that it's as though that means it's useless. Do you know, there's nothing to it anymore, because you've said that it's state capitalist, and you'll often hear, for example, Trotskyists will often say this kind of thing. Okay, they'll say when they talk about the Soviet Union, the USSR, when they talk about any of these socialist states, they'll say either A, it was a degenerated worker state, or they'll say it was state capitalist. Now, they'll say, look, Lenin came forward and actually called the USSR state capitalist, you know, during the NEP period, during the early days of the USSR. Okay, and that's true. He did. He did say that. But what did he fucking mean? What did he mean when he said that? You know, what did he mean when he said when he talked about state capitalism, state monopoly capitalism? Actually, he said in 1917. Okay, and I'm reading it. I'm quoting here. Okay, this is Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. I'm not doing the Angela Davis voice here. This is in the impending catastrophe and how to prevent it. I'm going to put a little link into the chat here so people can follow this if they're curious, if they want to know what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay, he said that state monopoly capitalism inevitably and unavoidably implies a step, and more than one step, towards socialism. State capitalism is a step forward from where we are right now, from liberal bourgeois democracy, okay? Back to Lenin now, for if a huge capitalist undertaking becomes a monopoly, it means that it serves the whole nation. If it has become a state monopoly, it means that the state, in other words, the armed organization of the population, the workers and peasants above all, provided there is revolutionary democracy, directs the whole undertaking. In whose interests? In whose interests is this working? Okay, back to Lenin. Either in the interest of the landowners and the capitalists, in which case we have not a revolutionary democratic, but a reactionary bureaucratic state, an imperialist republic. And you know, like we can look at Saudi Arabia today as a good example of that. You know, and Lenin returns, or in the interests of a revolutionary democracy. And then it is a step towards socialism. For socialism is merely the next step forward from state capitalist monopoly. Or, in other words, here's the juicy bit, all right? Fucking brace yourselves, all right? In other words, socialism is merely state capitalist monopoly, which is made to serve the interests of the whole people and has to that extent ceased to be capitalist monopoly. Now, drop the fucking mic, digest that, think about that for a good while, okay? Just fucking think about it. Just fucking think about it. Because when you think to yourself, when you think socialism, oh okay, worker controlled means production, okay, whatever, so forth. Lenin is demonstrating a fundamentally dialectical, materialist, historical materialist understanding of the progression towards communism here. Okay, state capitalism is a prerequisite towards that stage, which is socialism. Okay, and if it serves the interests of the whole people, then that is socialism, right? Okay, so that's really, really fucking important. And it also puts into context all of these other states which we now call socialist, such as Cuba, such as Vietnam, such as X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? And it also puts into a historical context like the USSR, China, even modern China as well. Modern China matches that definition. There's a great. Have you ever heard Mao talking about state capitalism? Have you ever heard this? Can I, Yugopnik? Have you heard this?
I have, but shoot, read it out for the viewers.
Here we go. This is gonna fucking blow your minds here. Okay, so just gives. Now this is just one paragraph. Okay, this is on state capitalism, and again, I'm gonna put a link to this in the box here. Okay, let me just pop this in here. Give us 2 seconds while I share this with everyone so they know that I'm not just talking out my hole, which, you know, I usually am. Okay, so on state capitalism, this is Mao Zedong from July 9th, 1953. The present day capitalist economy in China is a capitalist economy which for the most part is under the control of the people's government and which is linked to the state-owned socialist economy in various forms and supervised by its workers. It is not an ordinary but a particular kind of capitalist economy, namely a state capitalist economy of a new type. It exists not chiefly to make profits for the capitalists, but to meet the needs of the people and the state. True, a share of the profits produced by the workers goes to the capitalists, but that is only a small part, about 1/4 of total. The remaining 3/4 are produced for the workers in the form of the welfare fund, for the state in the form of income tax, and for expanding productive capacity. Notice that term, productive capacity, often associated with Dengis, okay? And in brackets, Mao says, a small part of which produces profits for the capitalists. Therefore, this state capitalist economy of a new type takes on a socialist character to a very great extent and benefits the workers and the state. Deng, right there, okay? Deng, right there, could be describing modern China. There's no, you can't convince me otherwise. He's describing modern China right there, okay? And people go mad. Oh, that's a really funny meme when you talk about increasing the productive forces, productive capacity, and so on and so forth. But actually,
suicide nets.
Suicide nets, exactly. But this is exactly what Mao said, and so Deng Xiaoping couldn't have existed without Mao. Like, he actually was following in the tradition of Mao, and people just don't really fucking want to acknowledge that or understand that or admit that, Because
I'll say my part.
Please.
I would support state capitalism as an interim period, as long as it justifies itself in the long-term historical context. Yes. What do I mean?
Yeah.
If it ends up transitioning, it was worth it. If it does not end up transitioning, then it was just for its own sake. You understand? It's still better than just a non socialist leaning as a goal state capitalist experience. But for example, if you set up a state, it doesn't have to be China, it can be state X, metaphorically, and due to its current material situation, in order to survive in a vastly capitalist world and not be overtaken both by imperialist forces or local reactionary forces, or just by time and its own population not being patient enough, etc., to await the promises of socialism without experiencing the little goodness of capitalism on the way. If at the end of the line we expand productive forces, again I'm using the same term,
it's a Maoist term, it's not a Dengist term, it's a Maoist term.
But if at the end we do not, when we have established ourselves as a stable enough entity in the world economy and in geopolitics, and if we are at the point in which we can transition, where we are both defensible enough and both stable enough that we can transition, and we don't do it, that is the only moment when I would say that state capitalism as a tool has failed in this specific circumstance. But if it ends up, when it comes to China, we'll see in our lifetime.
2050.
Yeah,
hopefully, I hope so.
If I would love to see it. I don't know if it's gonna happen.
Look,
I would love to see it.
No, you're right.
God bless.
You are right. There is an element of let's wait and see. There is. We can't fuck around. There is an element, like we're sort of.
I'm not shitting.
Hoping.
I'm not shitting on what anyone's doing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying interim periods are supposed to be looked as tools, right? Like this is how we're gonna do it in order to reach point X. So you're telling me I want to be a sprinter, a guy who runs 100 meters super quick, and you're telling me do these types of training, do this type of training, and then you're going to be faster than all other guys. And I'm like, all these other guys, some of them don't even want to run. Some other guys are, I don't know, doing steroids, which let's use as a metaphor for capitalism, playing very dirty. And you're telling me, do hardcore exercises, but do a little bit of steroids, because you are competing with the guys on hardcore steroids. And if in the long run I don't win the race in order to, I don't know, get more money so I can get better training so I don't have to use steroids ever, then that was bad advice. But if it does lead me to winning a lot of races, getting enough money in order to get better trainers in order not to use the steroids, then it was good advice. So we'll see in the long run if it leads to the promises that it had proposed in the original tenants, then fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, I'm behind it.
This is a really key point. Look, we exist, whether we fucking want to acknowledge it or not. We exist within a world which is dominated by imperialism, specifically Western imperialism, particularly the US and the EU. Okay, they dominate the world right now. Okay, while Western imperialism exists, there can be no communism. So if you have a socialist revolution tomorrow, it's not that it doesn't matter at all, but it's less important that you implement socialism in your individual country than it is that you're putting up a fight against global imperialism.
No debate there. Oh, absolutely. We don't even have to go there. What I mean? Oh, absolutely.
But this is so important because so many people don't really get that. They look back at the USSR and they say, why didn't they transition to communism? If socialism is a transitionary state, why didn't they get to communism? And you hear these hot takes on Twitter, and anarcho-pack is going to come in and say, socialism, Marxism, socialism is a transitionary state between capitalism and capitalism. And it's like, are you fucking serious? Fuck that. That's bullshit. They couldn't get to communism because Western imperialism still dominated the world. Do you know what I mean? And that's really, really important to understand.
Exactly.
Especially from
that's why I just have to I have to repeat it so that I'm not misunderstood. I said that in the circumstance in which it is possible to transition. So the circumstance in which, for example, no imperialist force has more power than your state capitalist state, and you do not transition, that's where I would pull back my support. But if the long-term goals are met, which I think that's the whole fucking point of state capitalism, is bring it up to a level in which you literally can say fuck off motherfucker to whoever would bring you down when you do transition, then it absolutely makes sense.
Dangest.
No,
I'm putting this into my clip. I'm putting this into my little clip. The fucking best Yugopnik Dangest moments. This is happening.
Okay, my girlfriend is giving me hardcore looks like she's gonna fucking stab me in the throat.
You fucking like, revisionist.
It's like, no, not because of dang, but yeah, it's getting late.
We've been streaming for 3.5 fucking hours. Are you serious?
And it felt like 30 minutes, but when I looked at the clock, it was insane. I drank all of my vodka. I literally have none left.
Well, I have enough. Just come on over to Ireland and I'll give you a bit. I'll give you a few more. Give you a pint of vodka.
I might take you up on that.
Please do. Are we gonna wrap this up? This is fucking great crack.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you can wrap it up whatever way. Again, you guys have links in the description for my shit. Wait, next week I'm gonna publish one piece that should be relatively interesting for you guys to check out. It's on how markets do not create the best possible products. Yeah, I'm just
We
plugging
were
like
going
a
to talk.
motherfucker here.
No, yeah, we were going to
Ev-
talk about that. We were going. Sorry,
No,
comrade.
fuck that. No, we ended up fucking talking about it in the long run. You're fine.
Yeah,
You're in.
we kind of. But okay, all right. Let's do this properly. So, comrade, tell me,
We need
please
more topics
plug
for our podcast that we're gonna set up together.
for
So
our
don't
yeah,
worry.
absolutely.
Don't worry.
Please plug everything you can now. Everybody, go support our comrade Yugopnik on Patreon. Go support. Like, it's fucking hard. Look, guys, we're all fucking struggling financially. I know how it is. But if you can, if you have €1 or two or $1 or two, just give our comrade a little bit of support on Patreon if you can. It really helps us going. It really helps us keep going. And of course, underneath the video, you'll find a link to the YouTube channel, to the Twitter, and all that sorts of thing. Yugopnik's a fantastic comrade. And yeah, look, do you want
No,
to?
you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you hang up.
No, you. Thank you, and same back at Paul. He's absolutely wonderful. I can't imagine a better, well-rounded, kind, but also straight and direct motherfucker as him. The online left needs more people like him. Trust me, not all these. Okay, I'm not gonna shit on. Yeah, fucking Jesus. But
we can really.
I'm
We
looking
can
at
read
the
between the
screen and it's
lines.
fucking shaking in front of me right now. It's fucking insane. But yeah. Yeah, thank you also for your time, for anybody who has stuck throughout this entire 3 hour and a half experience. I hope we have not said anything that is too cringy.
We
We
have.
will use the argument of alcoholism as an excuse.
We're drunks. We have a problem. I need to go to fucking AA or something like that, don't we?
Oh no, not a problem. Нет проблем, другарю. No, no. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you for your time, Paul. You can wrap it up. And I genuinely think we can do this like semi-annually. This is very fun.
Definitely semi-annual. At least twice a year. No fucking doubt about it. Let's fucking eat. We're drunk and we'll
Oh,
watch this tomorrow.
I say 12 times a year, motherfucker. Like,
I
why
think
not?
12 times a year will be fucking great. I don't mind. I don't care if I'm having fucking people on streaming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every
Yeah,
fucking
like
week.
10 people,
We're
I'm
jumping on.
fine as long as yeah.
Who fucking cares?
Fuck it.
You're jumping on. We're having the crack. We're getting drunk, and we're having a good time. Listen, thank you so much for coming on, comrade. It's been fucking great fun. I am extremely drunk. I'm sorry to everybody in the chat here. There's this thing that Yugopnik used to say about Irish people. What was it you said about Irish people? Something. Do you wanna take that? But with regard to Slavic alcoholism.
You're the Slavs of Western Europe.
Slavs of Western Europe. So I think there's a natural affinity here between.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But we need to learn. I think that we in Ireland need to learn a thing or two from your successful experiments in socialism, from the successes, from the failures, and so on and so forth. And I wish Ireland had the success that such places had before, if that makes any sense. Look, comrade, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fucking great. Everybody, go check out Yugopnik's channel. It's fucking deadly. He's an absolute legend. Go subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter, and so on and so forth. I'll just do a quick little shout out to everybody in the chat here at the moment. Then I'll let you go, comrade. My wife is waiting downstairs as well. She's like, "What the fuck? You said you'd be streaming for an hour or two. It's nearly fucking.
Mine as well.
It's nearly fucking 4 hours in, and we're still fucking around.
Fucking
right.
savages, man.
Beasts. Yeah. All right, we have thanks very much for tuning in. Socialism 101, Kaliox, Red Dondorian, Anarchitty, Zomgd Forley. Lads, you shouldn't have such fucking difficult to pronounce names on YouTube. It'd be much easier for me to fucking call you out and to support you and get people, putting their eyes on your channel if you had easy to pronounce names. Look at comrade Neo Jacobin. Easy to pronounce name. Now, I hope you're not a fucking fascist. If you're a fucking fascist like Comrade Oakes, then yeah, well, there's gonna be trouble. But fucking change your name to something that's easy pronounceable. Like Martin. We have Martin Barakov here, okay? Good stuff. Michaela Schmidt, Anarchitty, Tank Punk, Berrimans, Ben Totes, all great comrades. Denane. Yeah. Anyway, Drunk Paul is best Paul. This person. Listen, Faye, thank you so much, everybody. Tank Punk, ZB, everybody else there. I really, really appreciate you tuning in and for sticking around for almost fucking 4 hours here at this stage, which is just ridiculous. And look, Yugopnik, I think we're gonna be doing this at least once a month from now on. Is that? Do you think that's pretty accurate?
I think that's a great fucking idea.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can hear my liver disagreeing, but my mind fully agreeing.
The heart's here.
Who am I kidding? I do this every fucking day, just talking to myself. So
We
this,
pretend
this
that
is
we're
like,
we pretend we're sober.
pretend like, oh, I only drink once a month. Ha ha ha. Yeah.
We'll just drink once a month. Yeah. Class comrade, I'm looking forward to doing this again soon. Donal O'Kushliov, good stuff. Sefrock, Groucho Marxists. I can't pronounce his name. J or BB. I don't know. I can't pronounce that. Bye, everybody. Thanks very much. Yugopnik, thank you so much, comrade. You're a fucking legend. I'm looking forward to doing this again in a few weeks. I'll end the stream here. You're a legend.
No, you're a legend.
No,
you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you
No,
hang
you?
up. No, you hang up.